Chapter 499. A gust of wind blew, stirring up sand and dust. Outside Hong Tian City, dozens of rows of cavalrymen lined up 3 li in a row. All of them were prepared to die. Mourning soldiers weren't scary, but mourning soldiers were powerful. Moreover, there were so many of them, and they had top-notch armor and war horses. They were also led by 2 emptiness realm experts. Such mourning soldiers were terrifying. At this moment, the fighting will of the 78,362 cavalrymen seemed to have condensed into one. Everyone roared in their hearts. They wanted to kill the invading enemy. Kill 1 to break even, kill 2 to make a profit, kill 10, and die with a smile. Fight! 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 The 78,362 roars shook the hearts of the people. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, Tung Ching Shan, and Li Jun were all in the barracks of the Heavenly God Palace. Oh no! The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult frowned. The morale of the army of the Heavenly God Palace has been affected. The arrogant were afraid of the reckless. How could the morale of the army of the Heavenly God Palace not be affected? Look! Tung Ching Shan looked ahead and said, "The God of Heaven monk has arrived." The 2 armies faced each other. The monk, who was dressed in a red robe, stood in front of the army with a smile. When he opened his mouth, his voice was like the rumbling of thunder. Children of Hong Tian City, in the past few months, the Heavenly God Palace has attacked Hong Tian City from the north and south. They have destroyed everything in their way. Now, only this city is left. In the past few months, enough people have died in Hong Tian City. Look at your brothers and friends beside you. Do you want them to die? Do you think that not enough people have died? Put down your weapons and live a peaceful life. Your wives and sons are waiting for you. Put down your weapons. The voice of the God of Heaven had a magical power that drilled into people's minds. Even though the soldiers of Hong Tian City were prepared to die, many of them were still affected by the voice and thought of their sons and grandsons. Get lost! The bald man, who was wearing blood-red armor, roared fiercely. His voice seemed to have smashed into the hearts of those who heard it. He glared at Su Monk and said, "Su Monk, your army from the God of Heaven Mountain has killed countless disciples of my Hong Tian City in just a few months. Now, pretend to be a good person. Get lost, you bald donkey." Beside him, another bald man wielding a saber also glared at him and shouted, "The men of Hong Tian City are the most indomitable men in the world. We are people of Hong Tian City. Dead, it's the ghosts of Hong Tian City. Our Hong Tian City is ready today. 78,362 brothers, including me, Zhou Tianchong." The bald man with the saber roared, "And my elder brother, Yushir Jin. The 2 of us, along with 78,362 brothers, are prepared to die with Hong Tian City. If I don't kill enough of the enemy's blood today, how can I face the patriarch? The ancestral master once said, if you are born a man, you will kill. Don't let a man's body be wrapped around a woman's heart. Kill! Kill! Kill!" Nearly 80,000 cavalrymen shouted in a low voice. Their eyes were like a crazed lone wolf. Suddenly, rumble, the ground in front of the formation trembled, and then the ground exploded. At the same time, an enormous monster emerged from the ground. This monster's entire body was covered with spikes, and at first glance, it looked somewhat like a hedgehog. Its head was completely pointy, and its 6 ears were the most obvious. They were very small and moved occasionally. This monster was 3 zhang tall, and on its pointy head, a pair of black eyes looked around. Roar! A shocking roar came from the monster's throat. Ha ha! Ha! At this moment, the 2 emptiness realm experts of Hong Tian City laughed heartily as they stood beside the monster. This hedgehog-like monster also stood between the 2 emptiness realm experts. Its cold eyes swept across the people of the Heavenly God Palace. The facial expressions of Pei San, Li Chao, and the others, who stood in the army of the Heavenly God Palace, changed. It's the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse. It actually came. The facial expressions of Pei San and the others changed. The emptiness realm experts, who were watching the battle from afar, clicked their tongues in admiration. It's the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse. In the middle of the army, Tung Shan was also shocked. The six-eared, earth-drilling mouse is one of the four great godly beasts of the land of the 9 prefectures. It seems that Hong Tian City paid a great price to invite the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse. In the land of the 9 prefectures, most of the emptiness realm demonic beasts hid in various places and rarely came out. However, there were exceptions among the emptiness realm demonic beasts. These exceptional emptiness realm demonic beasts were not willing to live in the deep mountains and forests, nor were they willing to hide somewhere. They did whatever they wanted. They wanted to do what they liked. For example, eating people. For example, killing and so on. In the land of the 9 prefectures, there were 4 extremely famous godly beasts. Even the ordinary post-liminary realm experts knew about them. They were called godly beasts because ordinary people feared their strength. Therefore, they regarded them as godly beasts. Actually, the 4 godly beasts were just emptiness realm demonic beasts. In terms of strength, they might not be stronger than other emptiness realm demonic beasts. There were many types of demonic beasts, but only a few of them were recognized as godly beasts. Only those who were truly powerful could be called godly beasts. The extremely famous 4 godly beasts of the 9 prefectures were free and not controlled by humans. However, they had their own desires. Moreover, their intelligence was not inferior to that of humans. Therefore, humans could use their desires to ask these demonic beasts to come out of the mountains. Among the 4 godly beasts, the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse had the lowest difficulty in inviting emptiness realm demonic beasts to come out of the mountains. The nest of the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse was in Rongzhou, southwest of the land of the 9 prefectures. However, the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse loved to eat. Its favorite fruit was the flaming dragon fruit. However, this flaming dragon fruit was extremely rare and precious. It was also very difficult to obtain. Although the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse was powerful, it was alone. It was very difficult to find the flaming dragon fruit. Therefore, usually if one gave enough flaming dragon fruits, they could ask the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse to do something for them. Although the emptiness realm demonic beasts were greedy and cruel, one thing was for sure. They kept their promises. They were all proud and aloof, but the emptiness realm demonic beasts kept their promises. This time, when Hong Tian City was in danger of being destroyed, Tung Shan went to Emperor Yu's hall and spent a great amount of spiritual treasures of the heavens and the earth to ask Emperor Yu's hall for help. Tung Shan managed to obtain many flaming dragon fruits. Then, with the help of the flaming dragon fruit and the fact that there were people in Emperor Yu's hall who understood the language of beasts, go talk to the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse. That was how he managed to invite the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse. The 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse was not good at anything, but it was good at one thing: dig into the ground. It was known as the fastest drilling speed in the 9 prefectures. We have the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse. It will be difficult for Pei San to destroy Hong Tian City. The chubby young monk of the Mani Temple laughed like a kid. He didn't look like an eminent monk at all. The 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse is extremely good at drilling. The 2 Hong Tianqing brothers had the assistance of the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse. He could easily appear anywhere on the battlefield. In this way, the heavenly god palace will be at a disadvantage. The 3 experts of the Ying family were also watching the battle with great interest. They would only be happy if the heavenly god palace suffered a loss. Everyone, take your time and see how the heavenly god palace will deal with this. Yu Tonghai grinned and exchanged glances with the other emptiness realm expert beside him. The 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse was invited by Hong Tian City with the help of Emperor Yu's hall. Of course, they knew. In front of the battle formation, the 2 armies faced each other from a distance. Pei San's expression darkened as he stared coldly at the 2 Hong Tianqing brothers, who stood proudly in the distance. They actually invited the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse. No matter how good-tempered Pei San was, he was still angry. "Teacher, what should we do?" At this moment, Li Chao, who had already donned a suit of armor, asked with the use of the sound transmission technique. He had obtained this godly armor after the death of the sovereign of Xiaoyao Palace. Ah, the heavenly god palace. Don't you want to destroy Hong Tian City? The bald man, who was wearing blood-red armor and holding an iron mace, laughed loudly. If you want to destroy Hong Tian City, be prepared to be bitten by Hong Tian City. The two of us and the six-eared earth-drilling mouse are here. If you want to fight, come. Haha, let's fight. The other man, Zhou Tianchong, laughed loudly. Roar! The six-eared earth-drilling mouse raised its head and roared. Immediately, the army of Hong Tian City shouted, "Fight!" It was obvious that their morale had reached its peak. Zhou Tianchong, you Shijin. Payson stared into the distance as his cold voice resounded throughout the battlefield. Hong Tian City will be destroyed today. At this moment, you still want to make a false accusation? Dream on. Payson waved his hand with a murderous look and shouted, "Attack!" Immediately, dong, dong, dong. Several drums were being beaten from all directions of Hong Tian City. The sound of the drums shook the heavens. All the soldiers of the heavenly god palace gripped their weapons tightly as they stared ahead. In front of such a large army, they knew that if they didn't want to die, they had to charge forward. Charge! Charge! Under the orders of their respective officers, the soldiers of the heavenly god palace dashed madly toward Hong Tian City. Brothers! The man in blood-red armor raised his head and the veins on his face bulged. He roared, "Today I, Yu Shijin, and 78,362 brothers will kill our enemies together. We will kill to our heart's content. Kill 2, and we will win. Kill 10. Haha, we will win. Kill." The other emptiness realm expert roared as well. Kill, kill, kill. Below the four walls of Hong Tian City, nearly 80,000 cavalrymen brandished their weapons and charged forward on their warhorses. Like a three-colored torrent of steel, they charged forward madly. Roar! The six-eared, earth-drilling mouse roared as well. The two emptiness realm experts leaped onto the back of the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse. Sizzle! The six-eared, earth-drilling mouse carried the two emptiness realm experts and instantly burrowed into the ground. In the blink of an eye, within the army of the heavenly god palace, 3 li away, rumble, the ground split open, and the six-eared earth-drilling mouse emerged with two emptiness realm experts. Kill them. Pei San, who was dressed in a white cloak, Li Chao, who was clad in godly armor, and the monk, who was dressed in a dark red cloak, held a golden metal rod in his hand. The three experts leaped onto the back of the six-legged blade-like Qi Fu. The six-legged blade-like Qi flapped its wings and flew over. The bloody battle began. Chapter 500. In the main camp of the heavenly god palace, the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult, Tung Qingshan, Li Jun, the king of beasts, and Pei Hao were all watching. The battlefield in the distance was already a scene of blood. The two emptiness realm experts of Hong Tian City rode the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse and charged into the army of the heavenly god palace, slaughtering the soldiers in the surroundings. When they saw Pei San, Li Chao, and the great monk Su Minta riding on the six-legged blade-like Qi and chasing after them, the two brothers of Hong Tian City didn't fight them. Instead, they leaped onto the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse. Chi-Chi, the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse, drilled into the ground again and disappeared. Chase! Pei San commanded. The six-legged blade-like Qi carried the three of them on its back and drilled into the ground. High up in the sky, the godly thunderbolt hawk was circling. Pei Hao and the Beast King's expressions changed. Not good. Tung Qingshan frowned. Through his domain, Tung Qingshan could clearly see that the six-eared earth-drilling mouse and the six-legged blade-like Qi, who had drilled underground, were drilling rapidly. The body structure of the six-eared earth-drilling mouse and the six-legged blade-like Qi were both good at drilling. However, the difference between the two was obvious. The drilling speed of the saber mantis is not as fast as the six-eared earth-drilling mouse. Tung Qingshan frowned. This is troublesome. The Beast King's face sank. What's wrong? What's happening underground? The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult hastily asked, "Fifth uncle, what's going on?" Pei Hao frowned as he shook his head and said, "Who has demonic beast? The blade-like chi is slower than the six-eared earth-drilling mouse." The six-eared earth-drilling mouse was indeed worthy of being called the number one earth-drilling demon beast in the 9 prefectures. His speed was truly astonishing. This time, third brother and the others are in big trouble. It was indeed troublesome. The 2 emptiness realm experts of Hong Tian City, Zhou Tianchong and Yu Shijin, relied on the six-eared earth-drilling mouse to launch sneak attacks on the important areas of the Heavenly God Palace's army. For a moment, the army of the Heavenly God Palace couldn't focus on killing the cavalrymen of Hong Tian City. The number of our Heavenly God Palace's army far exceeds theirs. In terms of elites, the Heavenly God Palace also has a troop that is comparable to Hong Tian City's cavalry. Moreover, many of the cavalrymen of Hong Tian City are old men who wear armor and come a fight. The King of Beasts said in a deep voice. However, the 2 emptiness realm experts, Zhou Tianchong and Yu Shijin, are attacking the elite troops of the Heavenly God Palace. My army is in chaos. The winner was king and the loser a bandit. At this point in time, the 2 emptiness realm experts of Hong Tian City were prepared to die. They only hoped that more people of the Heavenly God Palace would die. Why would he care about face? Kill! Kill! In the blink of an eye, the Heavenly God Palace's army and Hong Tian City's armored cavalry clashed with each other. Fresh blood splattered and severed limbs littered the ground. The neighing of the war horses and the furious roars of the soldiers mixed together. At this moment, the soldiers of the Heavenly God Palace, who were charging at the front, were completely mixed with the cavalrymen of Hong Tian City. For a moment, the craziest battle had begun. At this moment, the 2 emptiness realm experts, Zhou Tianchong and Yu Shijin, finally stopped. A few thieves from the Heavenly God Palace. Ha! You want to kill his 2 brothers? Come on. The veins on Yu Shijin and Zhou Tianchong's faces were bulging. They seemed to have gone mad. Phew! Pei San and the other 2, along with the 6-legged blade-like Chi and the godly Thunderbolt Hawk, surrounded them. When the emptiness realm experts of the Heavenly God Palace and Hong Tian City finally started fighting, Tung Qingshan couldn't help but gasp. This is crazy. Tung Qingshan's facial expression changed as he thought to himself. Yu Shijin and Zhou Tianzhong are really suicidal. Yu Shijin and Zhou Tianzhong intentionally avoided Pei San. Instead, they fought against the great monk Su Monk and the sovereign of the sword sect, Li Chao. For example, when Li Chao thrust his sword towards Zhou Tianzhong swung his saber. Zhou Tianchong slashed out with his saber. Instead of blocking the sword, he slashed at Li Chao's face. He wanted to exchange a life for a life. It's not strange that they are crazy. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult sneered. Although they are struggling, they know that Hong Tian City is finished. The survivors of Hong Tian City are hiding everywhere in the land of the 9 prefectures. Although they are emptiness realm experts, they don't dare to stay with the survivors. Otherwise, wouldn't they be telling the others where the survivors are hiding? Therefore, the 2 of them must die. My eldest martial brother's life is much more precious than theirs. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult looked confidently at the battlefield where the emptiness realm experts were fighting. With Father there, nothing will go wrong. The emptiness realm experts were fighting too fast. In the time it took Tung Qingshan to say a few words, they had already fought more than 1,000 times. Just the waves of energy that spread out caused the surrounding area to become a zone of death. Smoke and dust filled the air, and no soldiers dared to approach this area. Occasionally, sharp sword lights and saber lights would fly out of the area and hit some soldiers. Oh no! Oh no! Pei Hao and the King of Beasts shouted simultaneously. Tung Qingshan's facial expression changed drastically. In the distance, Li Chao, the sovereign of the sword sect, thrust his sword through the gap in the waist of Zhou Tianzhong's godly armor. After all, this godly armor was made from refined armor. An insightful emptiness realm expert used the power of the world to refine and transform over a long period of time to become a godly armor. However, its structure and appearance were the same as ordinary armor. There was also a gap. Ah! Zhou Tianzhong roared and hugged Li Chao's right arm crazily. Get lost! Li Chao kicked Zhou Tianzhong. The godly sword in his hand glowed brightly and incinerated Zhou Tianzhong's internal organs. However, even if an emptiness realm expert's body was dead, he could still live a little longer by relying on the control of his spirit. Die! Yu Shijin, who was wearing a blood-red godly armor and holding an iron mace, shouted. At the cost of forcefully resisting the big monk Su Mengta's iron rod, he took advantage of this opportunity and swung his 2 iron maces at Li Chao's head. Phew! A beam of light shot out from Pei San's hand towards Yu Shijin. Ah Chao! Pei San looked anxious. However, his speed was only comparable to the speed of an ordinary emptiness realm expert. Clang! One of Yu Shijin's iron mace was sent flying by the beam of light. Boom! The godly Thunderbolt Hawk's thunderbolt struck Yu Shijin's body. Relying on the godly armor, Yu Shijin swung his other iron mace. While Li Chao was unable to dodge, he swung it. Li Chao's only choice was to block this terrifying attack with his left arm. Boom! Yu Shijin was like a madman. The iron mace in his hand instantly smashed against Li Chao's left arm. Phew! 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 Yu Shijin swung his iron mace 6 times as fast as he could, either vertically or horizontally. He wanted to kill Li Chao. Li Chao's right arm was tightly held by Zhou Tianzhong, so he swung his left arm to block the mace. Under normal circumstances, Li Chao's left arm would have been smashed by the mace, and his head would have been smashed by the mace. Fortunately, Li Chao was wearing the godly armor. Although Yu Shijin was crazy, the godly armor was very effective. Although the bones in Li Chao's left arm were completely smashed by the emptiness realm expert, the godly armor only dented and did not crack. However, one only needed to look at the dented godly armor to know that Li Chao's left arm was completely crippled. Ah Chao! Li Chao! Pei San and the god of heaven, Su Mengta, dashed over. Whoosh! Whoosh! Zhou Tianzhong and Yu Shijin retreated at the same time. Tianzhong! Yu Shijin hugged his brother. Zhou Tianzhong's eyes gradually dimmed. He tried his best to grin and said in a hoarse voice, Big brother, it's a pity that we didn't manage to kill one. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Tianzhong's eyes completely lost their luster. The emptiness realm expert, Zhou Tianzhong, was dead. His internal organs were already smashed. If he wasn't an emptiness realm expert, he wouldn't have been able to hold on. It took a long time to describe, but it actually happened extremely quickly. From the moment Li Chao's sword pierced through the gap in Zhou Tianzhong's godly armor, to the moment Li Chao's left arm was smashed, to the moment Zhou Tianzhong and Yu Shijin retreated. Not even a breath of time had passed. The fight between emptiness realm experts was too fast. Ah Chao, ah Chao. Pei San hugged Li Chao's left arm. This, teacher, my arm is crippled. Li Chao clenched his teeth and said. Li Chao's broken arm, shattered bones, and minced flesh flowed out from the arm guard. The arm guard had already dented out of shape. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to wear it. Pei San was unprecedentedly furious, and his face darkened. Boom! Pei San screeched, and the godly thunderbolt hawk in the sky simultaneously attacked Yu Shijin, who was hugging his brother's corpse. Roar! Yu Shijin hastily let out a furious roar. This was the only sound he had learned. It was the roar he used to summon the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse. The 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse broke out of the ground. However, at this moment, the godly lightning hawk had already swooped down on Yu Shijin. Streaks of greenish-white lightning struck down. Yu Shijin lowered his head, actually using the blood-red godly armor on his body to resist the lightning. The godly lightning hawk seemed to be enraged. It suddenly screeched, and a streak of pure white lightning struck down on Yu Shijin. The godly thunderbolt hawk seemed to be tired after releasing this white lightning bolt. Bang! Yu Shijin's body trembled, as if he was an ordinary person who had been electrocuted. In just a split second, Pei San had already caught up. Die! Pei San angrily struck his palm. Get lost! You sure Jean's eyes were bloodshot. He hugged his brother with one arm and swung an iron mace at Pei San's palm with his other arm. Slap! Pei San's palm hit the iron mace and sent it flying. Then, his palm landed on Yu Shijin's chest. Boom! Yu Shijin was sent flying. In midair, Yu Shijin transformed into a beam of light and landed on the six-eared earth-drilling mouse, which was not far away. However, when Yu Shijin landed on the back of the six-eared earth-drilling mouse, Pei San dashed toward him and shouted, Die! Swoosh! 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 3 beams of light shot out from Pei San's hands and pierced toward the six-eared earth-drilling mouse. Roar! The six-eared earth-drilling mouse shrank its body and dodged one of the beams of light. At the same time, it immediately drilled into the ground. Poochie! Poochie! 2 beams of light pierced the six-eared earth-drilling mouse. One pierced its back, and the other pierced its short leg, which was covered with scales. The six-eared earth-drilling mouse roared in pain. As if sensing how terrifying Pei San was, the six-eared earth-drilling mouse immediately drilled into the ground. Sizzle! It immediately drilled into the ground and disappeared. Chase! Yu Shijin will definitely die after being hit by my palm. Chase after him. Pei San's voice resounded in the ears of all the emptiness realm experts of the heavenly god palace. Chase after the 2 sets of godly armor. Blade-like chi. Pei San summoned the 6-legged blade-like chi, however. At this moment, the 6-legged blade-like chi flapped its wings and flew in the direction of Tung-Ching-Shan. This is the 2nd chapter. Continue writing the 3rd chapter. Chapter 501. The 6-legged blade-like chi flew towards Tung-Ching-Shan because Tung-Ching-Shan transmitted his voice to the 6-legged blade-like chi. When the 6-legged blade-like chi heard Tung-Ching-Shan's voice, the 6-legged blade-like chi naturally returned. Pei San is extremely powerful. When he struck the godly armor of the sovereign of Xiao Yao Palace, the sovereign of Xiao Yao Palace died. Tung-Ching-Shan held his breath as he thought to himself. Yu Shijin was struck by Pei San's palm as well. He probably died as well. He has 2 sets of godly armor on him now. 1 set of godly armor was enough to make emptiness realm experts fight over it. One of the 2 sets of godly armor was the Hong Tian godly armor, which was second only to the supreme battle armor. Tung-Ching-Shan was tempted as well. Whoosh! Whoosh! Pei Hao and the King of Beasts drilled underground almost simultaneously. The 2 of them? Tung-Ching-Shan instantly guessed. They must have received Pei San's order to intercept the 6-eared earth-drilling mouse and obtain the 2 sets of godly armor. However, Pei San didn't transmit his voice to me. Tung-Ching-Shan understood that Pei San didn't really regard himself as a member of the heavenly god palace. Phew! The 6-legged blade-like chi had already flown to Tung-Ching-Shan's side. When Pei San, who was far away, saw this, he frowned slightly. However, he immediately transmitted his voice to Tung-Ching-Shan. Hua! Yu Shijin was struck by my palm. He will definitely die. Hurry up and chase after him. The 6-eared earth-drilling mouse is also injured, so it won't be able to drill quickly. You should be able to catch up with him by riding on the 6-legged blade-like chi. If you catch up and obtain the 2 sets of godly armor, you can take one and give one to the heavenly god palace. I will reward you handsomely. While his voice was still echoing in Tung-Ching-Shan's ears, Tung-Ching-Shan had already leaped onto the back of the 6-legged blade-like chi. Tung-Ching-Shan pointed underground. Chi-chi. The 6-legged blade-like chi tore open the ground and drilled underground. In the distance, Pei San, the severely injured Li Chao, and the god of heaven, Su-Munta, stood together. The great monk Su-Munta turned his head to look at Pei San and asked, puzzled, Sovereign, the blade-like chi suddenly flew back. It must have been summoned by Hoo-Ha. He doesn't want us to chase after him, but he chased after him himself. This Hoo-Ha is a little... Pei San smiled indifferently. He is a foreign dignitary, not a servant of the heavenly god palace. How can I order him around? Moreover, the six-legged blade-like chi, is an emptiness realm demonic beast. It is not something that we servants can command at will. That was what he said, and the logic was as well. But, in the eyes of the god of heaven, Su Mengta and the others, Pei San, the sovereign of heaven, was a supreme being. Foreign dignitary Huha did this because he didn't know how to appreciate favors. In the future, it's fine if you can't be friends with Huha, but don't become enemies. Although the heavenly god palace is not afraid of him, if we really become enemies with him, there will be many troubles. The image of the undying phoenix on the island surfaced in Pei San's mind. Indeed, Pei San feared Little Blue's mother. After all, Little Blue's mother was too fast. If she wanted to launch a sneak attack and harass her, Pei San wouldn't be able to do anything. Moreover, in terms of strength, Little Blue's mother was extremely terrifying. Pei San didn't want to go against Little Blue's mother just because of Huha. Yes, sovereign teacher. Although Li Chao and Su Mengta were puzzled, they still obeyed. Underground, Tang Qingshan was on the back of the six-legged blade-like Qi. The six-legged blade-like Qi's 6 limbs were stretched out, and the six-legged blade-like Qi's 6 blade-like arms wrapped around its entire body. The sharp thorns formed a whirlpool. For a moment, the six-legged blade-like Qi turned into a huge electric drill, continuously drilling the earth and advancing at a terrifying speed. Whoosh! Whoosh! Huh! As expected. Tang Qingshan's eyes brightened as he thought to himself, the speed of the six-eared earth-drilling mouse is obviously not as fast as when it was in perfect condition. At this moment, it is actually slightly slower than the blade-like Qi. Within Tang Qingshan's domain, he could clearly sense that the powerful aura of the six-eared earth-drilling mouse was drilling and advancing at a depth of about 10 li underground. Above this aura, there was a slightly smaller aura of an emptiness realm expert. This aura should belong to Yu Shijin. It was obvious that the distance between the two was shrinking. You can't escape. Tang Qingshan narrowed his eyes. Roar! The six-legged blade-like Qi emitted an excited roar. It was obvious that it was very dissatisfied that it couldn't catch up to the six-eared earth-drilling mouse. Not good. The pale-faced emptiness realm expert, Yu Shijin, was on the back of the six-eared earth-drilling mouse. He hugged the corpse of his brother, Zhou Tianchong, tightly crouched on the back of the six-eared earth-drilling mouse. The demonic beast behind us is very fast. The six-eared earth-drilling mouse is slightly slower than it. He could clearly sense that the two auras of emptiness realm experts were approaching him. He had long since shaken off the king of beasts and Pei Hao. Now, only Tang Qingshan and the six-legged blade-like Qi were still chasing him. It was the sovereign of the heavenly god palace who injured the six-eared earth-drilling mouse. Otherwise, the demonic beast wouldn't have been able to catch up. Yu Shijin was extremely anxious. Pooh! In his anxiety, he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Yu Shijin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His face was even paler than before. The sovereign of the heavenly god palace is indeed powerful. If I hadn't been wearing the Hong Tian godly armor, which is second only to the supreme battle armor, I would have been killed by the ordinary godly armor. If it had been an ordinary godly armor, that palm strike would have been enough to kill me directly through the godly armor. However, even with the Hong Tian godly armor, my internal organs were still injured. If I didn't fight, I would probably only be able to live for an hour. Yu Shijin was very clear about this. However, in just a short period of time, Tang Qingshan and the six-legged blade-like Qi were only 5 li away from them. This is the only way. Yu Shijin gritted his teeth and looked down at his brother in his arms. Tianchong, I'm sorry. As Yu Shijin spoke, flames slowly emerged from his hands and seeped into Zhou Tianzhong's corpse. Under the flames formed by the fire elemental power of an emptiness realm expert, Zhou Tianzhong's corpse instantly turned into ashes with a sizzling sound. Only an empty dark green godly armor was left. At this moment, the two sides were only 4 li away from each other. Oomph! Yu Shijin grabbed the helmet of the dark green godly armor and threw it. The helmet was like a shooting star as it flew backward. The soil in front of the helmet, which contained the power of the heavens and the earth, seemed to have no resistance at all. Almost instantly, the helmet arrived before Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan could clearly feel a powerful power of the heavens and the earth shooting toward him. Tung Qingshan waved the splitting mountain axe to block it. Dang! The splitting mountain axe blocked the helmet of the godly armor, and Tung Qingshan hastily grabbed it. This is... Tung Qingshan instantly deduced. This helmet of the godly armor should have been worn by the dead Zhou Tianchong. Ha! Didn't you want the godly armor? Ha! Go get it. Yu Shijin's arrogant voice rang in Tung Qingshan's ears. At the same time, another part of the godly armor that contained the power of the heavens and the earth shot toward Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan blocked it with the splitting mountain axe again. Tung Qingshan grabbed the arm guard and thought to himself, "A arm guard." At this moment, the distance between Tung Qingshan and Yu Shijin had shrunk to 2 li. Whoosh! Another part of the godly armor that contained the power of the heavens and the earth flew over. However, this time, it didn't fly directly toward Tung Qingshan. Instead, it flew toward Tung Qingshan about 10 zhang away. Chi, the six-legged blade-like Chi, abruptly made a turn and blocked the flying part of the godly armor. Tung Qingshan took it and looked at it. It was a dark green battle boot. A battle boot? Am I supposed to wear one? Tung Qingshan felt that something was wrong. Because Tung Qingshan had made a turn, the distance between them increased slightly. Whoosh! Another part of the godly armor that contained the power of the heavens and the earth flew over. However, this time, the part of the godly armor flew 2 to 300 zhang away from Tung Qingshan, which was more than 1 li away. The six-legged blade-like Qi made another turn. Tung Qingshan didn't stop it. This time, he obtained another part of the godly armor. It was a leg guard. As expected, this Yu Shijin is up to no good. The things he gave me aren't very useful. A battle boot, an arm guard, and a leg guard. He tried his best not to give me a pair. Moreover, the distance between us is increasing. Tung Qingshan completely understood. Now, I won't fall for your trick. Tung Qingshan wasn't worried at all. At this moment, the distance between them was 3 li, and the six-legged blade-like Qi was closing in. Whoosh! Another part of the godly armor that was enveloped by the power of the heavens and the earth flew over at extremely fast speed. However, this time, the distance between it and Tung Qingshan was even greater. It was about 2 li away. The six-legged blade-like Qi was about to make another turn. Blade-like Qi. Tung Qingshan hastily shouted with the use of the sound transmission technique while pointing the way. The six-legged blade-like Qi understood what Tung Qingshan meant. It wasn't stupid. With Tung Qingshan's guidance, it also understood that it had fallen for someone else's little trick, using the part of the godly armor to lure Tung Qingshan and gradually widen the distance between them. Once the distance between them was 34 li, it would be too difficult to catch up. Yu Shijin sensed that Tung Qingshan and the six-legged blade-like Qi didn't change their direction to chase after the godly armor. He couldn't help but feel shocked. Immediately, he took out another arm guard and threw it about 1 li away from Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan, who was chasing behind, didn't pay any attention to him and continued to chase. The distance between them had already shrunk to 1.5 li. What? You don't want the godly armor anymore? Yu Shijin's voice sounded in Tung Qingshan's ears. Simultaneously, another part of the godly armor that was enveloped by the power of the heavens and the earth flew towards Tung Qingshan. This is the inner armor of the godly armor. Blade-like Qi. Tung Qingshan hastily ordered the six-legged blade-like Qi to make a turn. Phew! The six-legged blade-like Qi made an arc in the air, and Tung Qingshan obtained this part of the godly armor, the inner armor. It was a dark green divine armor, and he felt a chill when he touched it. The inner armor was the favorite part of the Emptiness Realm experts because it could be worn under their clothes. Under normal circumstances, Emptiness Realm experts were too lazy to wear a full set of godly armor. Therefore, The inner armor was equivalent to a small part of the godly armor. It's only a few zhong. Tung Qingshan sneered with the use of the sound transmission technique. You sure, Jean? I have seen through your little trick. Don't even think about getting rid of me. You are a member of the Heavenly God Palace. Don't even think about getting the godly armor. You sure, Jean said angrily with the use of the sound transmission technique. I am not a member of the Heavenly God Palace. I did not try to kill you. Tung Qingshan said with the use of the sound transmission technique. Don't even think about lying to me. You sure, Jean said angrily with the use of the sound transmission technique. This demonic beast participated in the battle. You said that you did not try to kill me just now because you have not reached emptiness realm culmination. Therefore, the sovereign of the Heavenly God Palace was worried about you. As you sure, Jean spoke with the use of the sound transmission technique, he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Tung Qingshan sensed that Yu Sure Jean's words were not right. It seemed that Yu Sure Jean was severely injured. Yu Sure Jean, I advise you to stop running. I am afraid that you are not far from death. Stop struggling. Tung Qingshan said with the use of the sound transmission technique. At this moment, the distance between the two was only half a li. This is the end of the 3rd chapter. I will continue writing the 4th chapter. Don't hold on to your monthly votes. Vote for tomato. Chapter 502. Tung Qingshan, who was sitting cross-legged on the back of the 6-legged blade-like Qi, was chasing after the 6-eared earth-drilling mouse. At the same time, he recorded silently, there is a great amount of aura of life 13 li above us. It might be a snake's nest. There are also 3 strong auras of life 5 li to the left. They might be some kind of underground creature. Tung Qingshan recorded the location of the parts of the godly armor that Yu Sure Jean threw. I have memorized the locations of the parts of the godly armor that Yu Sure Jean threw. Tung Qingshan thought to himself, I don't have time to take them now. Once this matter was settled, and he had some free time, he would take a trip underground. Even an insightful emptiness realm expert would fight to collect a set of godly armor. Along the way, Tung Qingshan silently recorded the locations of the godly armor. Occasionally, Tung Qingshan would swing his axe and leave some marks in the rock stratum underground as a reference. With a large number of references, it would be easy to find this route. This is another leg armor, Yu Sure Jean said. Yu Sure Jean's voice sounded. Another piece of godly armor enveloped in the power of the heavens, and the earth flew past Tung Qingshan about 100 zhong away and stopped somewhere underground. Tung Qingshan didn't chase after it. Instead, he memorized the approximate location. When Yu Sure Jean threw out the leg armor of the godly armor, his body trembled violently. His face was as white as a sheet. Pooh! Yu Sure Jean spat out a mouthful of blood and smiled bitterly. I didn't expect that I would be so weak. Just by gathering some of the power of the heavens and earth, I will die. Yu Sure Jean could feel that the condition of his internal organs had worsened when he threw out the parts of the godly armor. Feeling dizzy, Yu Sure Jean gritted his teeth. No matter what, even if I die, I must not let the Hong Tian godly armor fall into the hands of the Heavenly God Palace. Otherwise, I will be the sinner of Hong Tian City. As Yu Sure Jean sat on the back of the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse, he endured his internal injuries and quickly took off the blood-red Hong Tian godly armor. A whole set of Hong Tian godly armor was placed neatly. The founding master of our Hong Tian city was a peerless figure who had conquered more than half of the land of the 9 prefectures. Yu Sure Jean took a deep breath and said, Founding Master, I, as a disciple of the younger generation, failed to protect the foundation of the land of the 9 prefectures. Patriarch, if your spirit is still here, I hope that this set of Hong Tian godly armor can be obtained by a truly fated person. As Yu Sure Jean thought to himself, he swung his arms that were holding the entire Hong Tian divine armor to the side. This time, he did not use the heaven and earth energy. Instead, he relied purely on his physical strength. Puchi. The entire set of Hong Tian godly armor smashed into the sand and soil at the side and was silently buried by the sand and soil. The Hong Tian godly armor, which was second only to the over-god armor, was hidden here. Other than Yushi Jin, no one else knew about it, since he did not use the power of heaven and earth to envelop him. Tung Qing-shan, who was chasing after him, did not notice him at all. After all, be it the Hong Tian godly armor or the splitting mountain axe, they were essentially weapons. The domain of an emptiness realm expert couldn't sense them at all. Chi. The six-eared, earth-drilling mouse's drilling speed suddenly increased, and it even increased to the speed of the six-legged blade-like Chi. This is the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse. Yushi Jin, who was already very weak, smiled bitterly and said, "I was injured earlier, so I did not travel at full speed. After resting for so long, I only increased my speed slightly now." Although Yushi Jin hated the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse for not increasing its speed in the beginning, he knew that the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse was severely injured and had only stabilized now. At this moment, the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse only increased its speed to the speed of the six-legged blade-like Chi. Obviously, it did not want its injuries to worsen. Forget it. The Hong Tian godly armor is buried severally underground. I don't know when it will appear again. Yushi Jin only had one last piece of dark green godly armor left. Yushi Jin put on the outer armor with great effort. "Tianchong, big brother is here to see you." Wearing the outer armor, Yushi Jin sat on the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse. He closed his eyes and felt his spirit slowly dissipate. When Tung Qing-shan sensed that the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse's speed had increased, he felt that something was wrong. Yes, Yushi Jin's aura is weakening. Tung Qing-shan was shocked. He could clearly sense that the aura of Yushi Jin's soul, which had been as dazzling as the sun, was weakening rapidly. Soon, it was at the same level as an ordinary innate expert. It continued to weaken until it completely disappeared. "He's dead. Yushi Jin is dead." Tung Qing-shan sighed inwardly. Tung Qing-shan had a good impression of Yushi Jin. In his opinion, the two brothers of Hong Tian City were true men. However, this was the way of the land of the 9 prefectures. The winner was the king, and the loser was always in the wrong. All kinds of stories were happening in the land of the 9 prefectures. You can only blame Hong Tian City for not being strong enough. If Hong Tian City had an insightful emptiness realm expert, if you had an emptiness realm culmination demonic beast, the heavenly god palace would be afraid. In the land of the 9 prefectures, ordinary villas are threatened by bandits and mounted bandits. Even sects like the Gui Yuan sect, which is oppressed by the 8 supreme sects, and Hong Tian City need to become stronger. An expert at the peak of the post-liminary realm can guarantee the safety of an ordinary villa. Gui Yuan sect has 2 emptiness realm experts, which is enough to intimidate Qinghu Island. Hong Tian City needs to go one step further. It needs an insightful emptiness realm demonic beast or an emptiness realm culmination demonic beast to stabilize its position. The higher one's status is, the more powerful one must be. Otherwise, it will be destroyed by others. Tung Qing-shan understood this point even more clearly. He was still not strong enough. If he relied on cultivation, it would probably take him another 10 years. Right now, the fastest way to increase his strength was, Little Blue and I have been separated for more than half a year. It's almost a year. Logically speaking, Little Blue should have arrived soon. It's rising? Tung Qing-shan's facial expression changed slightly. He was slightly surprised. The 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse is actually drilling into the ground? When it reached the ground, the 6-legged blade-like Chi's flying speed would definitely surpass that of the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse. The tunneling mountain range was located at the southwest border of Yuzhou. It was an ordinary mountain range with a circumference of over 40 li. In the sky, the enormous emptiness realm demonic beast, the wind-splitting dragon falcon, spread its wings and flew at an astonishing speed. On the back of the wind-splitting dragon falcon, there were 2 people. They were Yu Tonghai and a square-faced, middle-aged man dressed in a loose long robe. The 2 of them were laughing and chatting. Tonghai, when the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse escaped, I told it to run to the tunneling mountain range and meet up with us. The six-eared, earth-drilling mouse agreed. The square-faced, middle-aged man said with a smile. "Haha, Senior Marshal Brother Lou, you sure Gene had 2 sets of godly armor. The blood-red godly armor on his body is the legendary Hong Tian godly armor. If Emperor Yu's Hall gets it, it's really..." Yu Tonghai seemed very excited. "Haha, then we will have made a great contribution." Back then, Hong Tian City paid a great price to invite the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse from Emperor Yu's Hall. The square-faced, middle-aged man, Lu Xia, was the one who invited the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse. "Just watch. The six-eared, earth-drilling mouse will bring Yu Shijin to the tunneling mountain range." At this moment, the wind-splitting dragon falcon swooped down from the clouds and landed on the tunneling mountain range. It chose a mountain peak to rest. On the high mountain, Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia, the 2 emptiness realm experts, stood side by side. "Senior Marshal Brother, if Yu Shijin isn't injured at all, it will be troublesome for us to kill him," Yu Tonghai said with a frown. "Don't worry. When the time comes, we will ask Live Phone to help us. If we work together, can't we kill Yu Shijin?" Lu Xia smiled confidently. "After we kill him, the 2 sets of godly armor will belong to Emperor Yu's Hall. Just wait patiently. He'll be here soon." Although Emperor Yu's Hall had helped Hong Tian City before, it was only because Hong Tian City had given them so many treasures. Now, who didn't know how to beat a drowning dog and add insult to injury? "He's here," Lu Xia said happily. Why is there only 1 aura from the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse? What about Yu Shijin's aura?" Lu Xia was slightly confused. "Is he dead?" Yu Tonghai was slightly doubtful. "He died after being hit by Pei San's palm. The Hong Tian godly armor can't be that weak, right?" What he didn't know was that it wasn't that the Hong Tian godly armor was weak, it was that Pei San's palm was too powerful. Whoosh! Whoosh! Immediately, Lu Xia and Yu Tonghai flew down from the high mountain to meet the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse. Oh no! Lu Xia and Yu Tonghai's facial expressions changed. They could clearly sense that there were 2 auras rushing up from below the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse. It's Jing Yi and the demonic beast that is good at drilling. Yu Tonghai's facial expression changed. They actually caught up with us. Lu Xia immediately raised his head and screeched. The wind-splitting dragon falcon, which was resting on the mountain, immediately dived down. Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia leaped onto the back of the wind-splitting dragon falcon. The wind-splitting dragon falcon was extremely intelligent. It hovered quietly above the ground, ready to dive down at any time. The auras of the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse, Jing Yi, and the six-legged blade-like Qi approached rapidly. 20 li underground, 10 li underground, 2 li underground, bang! The rocks on the ground were smashed into smithereens. The six-legged blade-like Qi charged out, surrounded by the power of the heavens and the earth. The wind-splitting dragon falcon, Yu Tonghai, and Lu Xia, who had been waiting quietly above the ground, pounced down simultaneously. Roar! The six-eared, earth-drilling mouse immediately roared at Lu Xia. Simultaneously, the six-eared, earth-drilling mouse flicked Yu Shijin's corpse, which was held in place by the spikes on its back. Whoosh! Yu Shijin's corpse immediately flew up. Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia grabbed the corpse almost simultaneously. At this moment, the rocks on the ground exploded again. Tung Shan, who was holding the splitting mountain axe, stood on the back of the six-legged blade-like Qi and dashed over. No! Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia grabbed Yu Shijin's corpse. They were completely dumbfounded. Yu Shijin was only wearing a dark green outer armor on his upper body. Not to mention the Hong Tian godly armor. Even if it was a first-grade godly armor, he would only be left with an outer armor. Impossible! Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia hastily flipped open the outer armor and looked inside the corpse, hoping to see the inner armor of the Hong Tian godly armor. However, there was nothing. On the back of the six-legged blade-like Qi, Tung Shan, who was hovering nearby, frowned as he watched this scene. That's not right. When Yu Shijin was escaping, I saw him wearing the Hong Tian godly armor with my own eyes. Along the way, could it be? Tung Qingshan was shocked. Yes, he must have secretly thrown the Hong Tian godly armor away when he was throwing away the components of the second-rate godly armor. Fortunately, I have roughly memorized the route of his escape. No, not a single part of the Hong Tian godly armor. Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia's eyes reddened. It's impossible. He took 2 sets of godly armor and went underground. Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia stared at Tung Qingshan, who was nearby, almost simultaneously. Jing, Yu Tonghai suddenly roared. Don't think that we won't know that you took the Hong Tian godly armor just because you hid it. Quickly hand over the Hong Tian godly armor, and we will let this matter rest. Otherwise, don't blame me, Yu Tonghai, for disregarding our friendship. In the eyes of Emperor Yu's hall, Jing Yi was nothing. Quickly, hand it over. Lu Xia roared as well. The wind-splitting dragon falcon stared at Tung Qingshan with its cold green eyes. End of chapter 4. My neck felt a little stiff from writing. I shouted again, everyone, vote for me. Only with monthly votes will I be more motivated to update chapter 3 and 4. The more monthly votes, the more motivated I will be. Chapter 503. The 2 emptiness realm experts of Emperor Yu's hall and the wind-splitting dragon falcon, the fastest demonic beast in the land of the 9 prefectures, glared at Tung Qingshan. Roar! The 6-legged blade-like Qi let out a deep and angry roar as it scanned its opponent with its blood-red eyes. Tung Qingshan held half of the dark green godly armor in his left hand and the splitting mountain axe in his right hand. He smiled as he stood on the 6-legged blade-like Qi. Ha, you two? Tung Qingshan laughed and said, don't you think your question is ridiculous? If I really obtained the Hong Tian godly armor, why would I chase after the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse? Could it be because of Yu Shijin's corpse? Tung Qingshan spoke with assurance, not showing any signs of nervousness. Umph. Yu Tonghai's small eyes narrowed under his broom-like eyebrows. He stared at Tung Qingshan like a poisonous snake and said, we don't know anything else, but we do know that Yu Shijin escaped underground with 2 sets of godly armor. You were the only one who chased after him. Now that Yu Shijin is dead and the Hong Tian godly armor has disappeared, who else could have taken it if not you? Jing Yi, hand over the Hong Tian godly armor now. Stop quibbling, Lu Xia said coldly. The 2 emptiness realm experts threatened Tung Qingshan in an overbearing manner. I said I don't have it. Tung Qingshan's face darkened. Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia exchanged a glance. They knew very well that the 6-legged blade-like Qi before them knew how to drill into the ground. Currently, the 6-eared, earth-drilling mouse had already escaped far away. If they were to use force, Jing Yi could ride on the 6-legged blade-like Qi and rapidly drill into the ground to escape. There was nothing they could do. They could only think of a way to deal with Jing Yi later. That would be troublesome. I will take my leave now. Tung Qingshan cupped his hands and was about to leave. Wait, Lu Xia shouted hastily. Is there anything else? Tung Qingshan stood on the back of the 6-legged blade-like Qi and turned to look at Lu Xia. Jing Yi, Lu Xia said with a smile. From the ancient times until now, ever since Emperor Yu established Emperor Yu's hall, Emperor Yu's hall has been challenged many times. The earliest challenge was the emptiness realm expert Hong Shan Shao from 5,000 years ago, and the recent challenge was Zheng Rong from a few hundred years ago. There were a total of 12 emptiness realm experts recorded. Except for one who escaped overseas, the other 11 emptiness realm experts all died. Tung Qingshan's pupil shrank. Lu Xia's meaning couldn't be clearer. Offending Emperor Yu's hall meant death. Jing Yi, hand over the Hong Tian godly armor, and you will still be friends with Emperor Yu's hall. Yu Tonghai also said with a smile. Lu Xia and Yu Tonghai looked at Tung Qingshan in a friendly manner. But the threat was undisguised. 12 people provoked Emperor Yu's hall. Tung Qingshan said with a frown. As far as I know, when the heavenly emperor of the Qin Mountains unified the world, your Emperor Yu's hall even lost its mountain gate. It was only after the heavenly emperor of the Qin Mountains passed away that you were able to rebuild Emperor Yu's hall in Yu City. Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia's facial expressions changed slightly. When the heavenly emperor of the Qin Mountains unified the world, Emperor Yu's hall naturally disappeared without a trace. Only when the heavenly emperor of the Qin Mountains passed away could it be rebuilt. Moreover, the king of the northeast, Hong Tian City, conquered more than half of the land of the 9 prefectures. Emperor Yu's hall holed up in Yuzhou and didn't dare to interfere. You allowed the army of the king of the northeast to pass through the borders of Yuzhou, Tung Qingshan said doubtfully. I don't know. The mighty army passed through the borders of Yuzhou. Is this considered a provocation to Emperor Yu's hall? Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia's facial expressions became even more unsightly. Of course, there were people who provoked Emperor Yu's hall in history, and Emperor Yu's hall couldn't do anything to them. These people were either insightful emptiness realm experts or omnipotent experts. Emperor Yu's hall couldn't kill them either. Jingyi, what do you mean? Lu Xia's gaze turned cold. Yu Tonghai also shouted angrily. Are you going to hand over the Hong Tian godly armor or not? Emperor Yu's hall, I have no intention of becoming enemies with you. Tung Qingshan said indifferently. Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia's expressions relaxed slightly. Tung Qingshan then continued. However, I have to say that I didn't even get a single part of the Hong Tian godly armor. It's up to you to believe it or not. As for whether Emperor Yu's hall wants to start a war with me, Tung Qingshan grinned. Up to you. If you go too far, I will risk my life to accompany you. Tung Qingshan looked coldly at Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia and said, Jing, you will take his leave now. Blade like Qi, let's go. As soon as Tung Qingshan pointed the way, the 6-legged blade like Qi immediately dashed underground. Qi, the mountain rocks were as fragile as tofu, and the 6-legged blade like Qi drilled through them. In the blink of an eye, Tung Qingshan and the 6-legged blade like Qi were already severally underground. In just a moment, they had completely escaped from Lu Xia and Yu Tonghai's domain. On the Tongling mountain range, Lu Xia and Yu Tonghai knew each other, and their eyes were filled with anger. This Jing is really arrogant, Lu Xia said in a deep voice. If he didn't have that strange and powerful demonic beast called the Blade-like Qi, he would have been killed just now. Yu Tonghai was also unwilling to give up. This Jing is lucky to have a demonic beast that can fly and drill underground. However, we definitely can't let this matter go. Martial Brother Lu, I will go back and tell Martial Uncle. Martial Uncle will definitely have a way. Yu Tonghai humphed. However, Lu Xia shook his head and said, We can't rush this matter. Although we have fallen out with Jing Yi, at least we haven't made a move yet. If we make a move, we must kill him. Otherwise, there will be endless troubles. Moreover, this Jing, he has a very close relationship with the Heavenly God Palace. Emperor Yu's hall also had to treat the Heavenly God Palace with caution. Let's go back. Lu Xia immediately flew onto the wind-splitting dragon falcon. Yu Tonghai gathered the power of the heavens and earth of the fire elemental power and formed a ball of flame that enveloped Yu Shijin's corpse. Within the flame, Yu Shijin's body rapidly turned into ashes, leaving only the outer armor of his upper body behind. Yu Tonghai lowered his head and looked at the outer armor in his hand. He humphed coldly with dissatisfaction and glared fiercely at the ground. Then he flew onto the wind-splitting dragon falcon. Whoosh! The wind-splitting dragon falcon streaked across the sky like a beam of flowing light and flew toward the southwest direction of Yu City. Second uncle, did you see that? In the Tongling mountain range, on a mountain 1 to 2 li away from where the wind-splitting dragon falcon had been, over 10 hunters were watching in a daze. What a huge divine bird. It's even bigger than our house. And 2 people can fly. These ordinary hunters were extremely excited. In the underground, following the marks he had left behind, Tung Qingshan easily found the approximate route of pursuit. Blade-like Qi, slow down. Don't go too fast. At this moment, Tung Qingshan had already jumped off the 6-legged blade-like Qi together with the 6-legged blade-like Qi. They slowly advanced underground and searched the surroundings. While searching, Tung Shan thought to himself, unless Emperor Yuzhal is extremely confident, they would never make a move. In a land of the 9 prefectures, there were some unspoken rules between the Emptiness Realm experts. Usually, there would be Emptiness Realm experts between 2 great sections. The Emptiness Realm experts of the 2 great sects could settle their grudges by fighting each other. However, it was forbidden to kill the innate experts of the other sect. If the Emptiness Realm experts of both sects killed the innate experts of the other sect, everyone would be in trouble. Unless the 2 great sects were at war, the Emptiness Realm experts of one sect would not kill the innate experts of the other sect. If a war broke out, one of the sects would definitely be annihilated. Therefore, the 2 great sects would either not start a war, or if a war broke out, one of them would die. However, there was a difference between the 2 great sects and the Emptiness Realm experts who were not involved. The Emptiness Realm experts who were not involved were the people that the great sects did not want to provoke. However, if they provoked the Emptiness Realm experts, the great sects had to think of ways to turn the enemy into a friend or kill the enemy in one strike. Otherwise, there would be endless troubles in the future. My current identity is that of an Emptiness Realm expert who is not involved. Moreover, I have the 6-legged blade-like chi. You want to kill me? Tung Shan sneered inwardly. Tung Shan was someone who was least afraid of challenges. When he had just reached the innate realm, he had the guts to fight against the innate experts of Qinghu Island. Whether it was in his previous life or this life, he was not someone who would easily submit. Underground, Tung Shan searched carefully. It will be difficult to search for the components of the godly artifact, because it was just an artifact. An Emptiness Realm expert's domain would not be able to detect it. If Tung Shan were to slowly break through the soil and rocks to search, it would take him 10 days to half a month to find all the components. Fortunately, an Emptiness Realm expert had the power of the heavens and earth to replenish his body, and the supreme force within his body was endless. Xiao! Tung Shan could be seen running underground with the splitting mountain axe on his back. He brandished his hands and sent out beams of sword light that pierced through the rocks and soil. The beams of sword light were not very powerful to an Emptiness Realm expert. However, they were extremely powerful against rocks and soil, easily tearing them apart. The half of the godly armor was placed on the back of the 6-legged blade-like chi, while the 6-legged blade-like chi moved forward slowly. Its 6 blade-like arms also shot beams of light in all directions. This is the approximate location of a leg armor. I have to search carefully. Tung Shan slowed down and searched more carefully. Beams of sword lights shot out. Clang! Tung Shan heard a sound. Tung Shan couldn't help but feel happy. Stop! Tung Shan hastily turned his head and shouted at the 6-legged blade-like chi behind him, indicating for it to stop. Tung Shan then dashed towards the source of the sound rapidly. He smashed through the rocks and soil and saw a dark green leg armor lying amidst the crushed rocks. I found the first one. Tung Shan couldn't help but smile. He returned to the side of the 6-legged blade-like chi and threw the leg armor onto its back. I finally found a pair of leg armor. Continue. Tung Shan felt the joy of searching for treasures. From Hongtian City to the Tongling mountain range, Tung Shan had traveled 1,000 li underground. From the place where Yushur Jin started to throw the godly armor parts to the place where he stopped, it was a distance of 500 to 600 li. If Tung Shan had to search carefully within this distance of 500 to 600 li, he would have to spend a lot of time. Fortunately, Tung Shan remembered the approximate location of the few pieces of armor. When he reached the approximate location, he searched slowly and carefully. As for the other locations, he passed quickly and casually released beams of sword lights. Half a day later, I finally found it. Tung Shan looked at the dark green armor on the back of the 6-legged blade-like chi, including the helmet, inner armor, and boots. Except for the outer armor on the upper body, the rest is complete. However, under normal circumstances, there is no need to wear the outer armor. Tung Shan was very happy to have obtained a complete set of godly armor. However, Tung Qingshan looked around at the pitch-black rocks and asked, "Where is the Hong Tian godly armor?" Chapter 1. Chapter 504. I searched all the way here, but I did not find a Hong Tian godly armor at all. Deep underground, Tung Qingshan pondered by himself. As for the six-legged blade-like Qi, it was lying on the ground lazily and looking at Tung Qingshan with drooping eyes. When it saw that Tung Qingshan was not moving, the six-legged blade-like Qi actually closed its eyes and began to rest. This Hong Tian godly armor must be somewhere along the underground route. Tung Qingshan frowned. Where exactly did Yu Shijin hide the Hong Tian godly armor? Could it be that when he threw the divine artifact parts at the beginning, it was a smokescreen, and he took the opportunity to throw the Hong Tian godly armor? Tung Qingshan was unable to determine the approximate location where Yu Shijin threw the Hong Tian divine armor. If he really wanted to find it, the area would be too big, and it would be too difficult to find it. Suppose I were Yu Shijin. Knowing that he is going to die soon, he must want to deliver the Hong Tian godly armor to the survivors of Hong Tian City. Tung Qingshan pondered. If he noticed that someone was chasing after him, he must be trying to get rid of the enemy. Thus, he thought of using a second set of godly armor to tempt his enemies so that they wouldn't be able to catch up to him. Eventually, his injuries worsened. He knew that he could not hand over the Hong Tian godly armor. He definitely didn't want me to find out and get it. Therefore, when I throw out the Hong Tian godly armor, I will definitely not wrap it with the power of the heavens and earth. Tung Qingshan was even more certain now that he would be discovered by me. In that case, the Hong Tian godly armor should not have been lost when I used the godly armor parts to tempt him. At that time, he was still thinking of persevering until he could give out the Hong Tian godly armor. Yes, I remember that towards the end, Yu Shijin couldn't even speak clearly. Clearly, he was heavily injured. He even talked to me at that time. It should be to confuse me. Then, Yu Shijin threw out the Hong Tian godly armor. It should be around that part of the journey. Yu Shijin died not long after he threw out the Hong Tian godly armor. Tung Qingshan instantly determined the approximate location. In other words, that part of the distance is the most likely. Although he wasn't 100% confident, he couldn't care too much about it. Blade-like Qi, blade-like Qi. Tung Qingshan immediately woke up the six-legged blade-like Qi. The six-legged blade-like Qi opened its sleepy eyes and cast a helpless glance at Tung Qingshan with its blood-red eyes. Let's go back. Tung Qingshan pointed in the direction to return. The six-legged blade-like Qi willingly allowed Tung Qingshan to leap onto its back. Then, the six-legged blade-like Qi transformed into an enormous electric drill, easily tearing apart the rocks and soil under the ground and advancing southwest at an astonishing speed. This is where I got the arm guard. While moving forward, Tung Qingshan quickly determined the direction according to the marks left by the godly axe and some special reference objects. Stop! Tung Qingshan jumped off the six-legged blade-like Qi and saw the two consecutive slashes of the splitting mountain axe. Let's start searching from here. I estimate that we have to search 30 to 40 li underground. Thinking of the Hong Tian godly armor, which was second only to the paramount godly armor, Tung Qingshan was filled with energy. Blade-like Qi. Tung Qingshan hastily called out to the six-legged blade-like Qi roar. The six-legged blade-like Qi roared in dissatisfaction, and its six blade-like arms emitted rays of blade light. Whoosh! 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 The sword and blade lights pierced through the surrounding soil and rocks. Both Tung Qingshan and the six-legged blade-like Qi were enveloped by the power of the heavens and the earth, isolating the soil and water droplets. Just like this, Tung Qingshan and the six-legged blade-like Qi began their arduous search for the godly armor. They searched underground for a long time. I can't determine the exact location. I can only search inch by inch. Tung Qingshan continuously shot out rays of sword light from both of his hands. If he was careless and missed a certain area, the Hong Tian godly armor might be in that area. After all, they were underground. Even if they were several zhang away, the Hong Tian godly armor would still be blocked by the soil and rocks. The six-legged blade-like Qi was slightly tired. It waved its six blade-like arms casually, and the blade lights shot out in all directions. Pooh! 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 The sound of piercing through the soil and rocks resounded continuously, causing Tung Qingshan to feel numb. Clang! A crisp sound suddenly rang out. Ah! Tung Qingshan suddenly became spirited and his eyes lit up. The six-legged blade-like Qi's triangular head suddenly turned and looked in the direction of the sound. The man and the demonic beast glanced at each other. Their eyes were filled with joy. Tung Qingshan was overjoyed because he might have found the Hong Tian godly armor. The six-legged blade-like Qi was overjoyed because it didn't need to work as a miner anymore. Whoosh! Tung Qingshan and the six-legged blade-like Qi simultaneously dashed towards the source of the sound. They easily smashed through layers of rocks and finally reached their destination. Tung Qingshan stared fixedly at the various parts that were scattered among the soil and rocks. He saw that the helmet, inner armor, and battle boots were all scattered around. Every part of the godly armor was blood red. The entire godly armor seemed to have a strange magical power. Just looking at it would make one's blood boil and give one the urge to kill. This is the Hong Tian godly armor. The Hong Tian godly armor that is second only to the paramount battle armor. Tung Qingshan hastily squatted down and quickly collected the parts. Within the time of 3 breaths, the Hong Tian godly armor was completely collected. Back then, Yu Shijin did put this set of godly armor together. Tung Qingshan's facial expression changed slightly. He looked carefully at the inside of the inner armor and saw that there were actually 4 big words on the inner armor of the Hong Tian godly armor. Hong Tian godly armor. Hong Tian City was probably worried that the Hong Tian godly armor, which is second only to the paramount battle armor, will be treated as an ordinary battle armor. Therefore, he intentionally left these words inside. Tung Qingshan didn't think too much about it. He immediately began to put on the armor. After putting on the blood-colored battle boots and the inner armor, Tung Qingshan began to put on the godly armor piece by piece. The figure of the Northeast King, Hong Tian, should be slightly bigger than mine. Therefore, it seems a little loose when I put it on. Although Tung Qingshan was thinking this, he still happily put on the godly armor. After putting on the armor, only his hands and face were exposed. This Hong Tian godly armor combines the power of the heavens and the earth. This defense, Tung Qingshan's body quickly gathered the power of the heavens and the earth. The supreme force and the power of the heavens and the earth flowed between the godly armor and his body. However, at this moment, Qi, the Hong Tian godly armor, which was originally slightly loose, actually became slightly tighter. It stuck to his body comfortably. Tung Qingshan even felt that his pores could absorb the air from the outside world through the godly armor. At this moment, he couldn't even feel the weight of the godly armor. It didn't affect his attacking movements at all, as expected of the godly armor. Tung Qingshan performed his body art. For a moment, dozens of figures appeared underground and merged into one. It doesn't affect me at all. My body art is still as nimble as before. Tung Qingshan looked at the Hong Tian godly armor and felt even more proud of himself. He grabbed the splitting mountain axe with one arm and hacked at his left arm. Clang, clang, clang. Although he didn't use much strength, the 3 consecutive strikes didn't leave a mark on the godly armor on his left arm. TSK, as expected of the Hong Tian godly armor. Tung Qingshan was delighted. It's time to go to Hong Tian City. Wearing the Hong Tian godly armor, Tung Qingshan held the splitting mountain axe and landed on the back of the 6-legged blade-like Qi. The 6-legged blade-like Qi dashed upwards. When it broke through the surface of the earth, it flapped its wings and flew towards Hong Tian City like a beam of flowing light. Although the 6-legged blade-like Qi's drilling speed was fast, that was only in comparison to other demonic beasts. In terms of absolute speed, flying was naturally faster than drilling. When the six-legged blade-like Qi flew to the outskirts of Hong Tian City, it was already nighttime. At this moment, Hong Tian City had already regained its tranquility. Tung Qingshan looked down from above and saw a large number of military camps outside Hong Tian City. This time, the God of Heaven Mountain's army was too large, so they had to camp outside the city. What a strong smell of blood! Tung Qingshan smelled the strong smell of blood. With his night vision, he could clearly see the dark brown stains on the ground below. These were all traces of blood. When he thought of the nearly 80,000 cavalrymen who fought desperately and crazily, he thought to himself, "I'm afraid they are all dead." Although Tung Qingshan didn't notice this was indeed the case. The nearly 80,000 cavalrymen were all dead. Even the heavily injured soldiers who didn't have any weapons committed suicide. The Heavenly God Palace didn't get a single captive. Although the 80,000 cavalrymen of Hong Tian City died, the Heavenly God Palace suffered a greater loss. Woo-woo! Amidst the continuous military camps, the cries of their dead comrades, the laughter of victory, and the painful groans of the heavily injured soldiers could be heard. Accompanied by the strong smell of blood, Tung Qingshan could only sigh. The best way to minimize the suffering of the entire land of the 9 prefectures is to maintain a long period of peace. It is impossible to maintain a permanent unity. Tung Qingshan didn't stay for long. He rode on the six-legged blade-like Qi and dashed into Hong Tian City. At the same time, he clearly sensed the aura of the emptiness realm experts of the Heavenly God Palace. In an elegant courtyard, Pei San, the god of heaven Suminta, Li Chao, the king of beasts Wu Ho, Pei Hao, and the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult all put down their bowls and chopsticks. "Hua is here," Suminta said with a smile. "He probably put the godly armor back before coming here." The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult snorted and said, "He will probably lie and say that he didn't get the godly armor." Little Lien. Pei San immediately glared at his daughter. Remember, Jing Yi is a foreign dignitary, not a subordinate of the Heavenly God Palace. Pei San said to the others with the use of the sound transmission technique. His meaning was clear. All emptiness realm experts had dignity, and they couldn't be ordered around. Since Jing Yi wasn't a subordinate and the six-legged blade-like Qi belonged to Jing Yi, why should Jing Yi lend the six-legged blade-like Qi to the Heavenly God Palace and let the Heavenly God Palace search for the godly armor? It was understandable that Jing Yi would search for the godly armor himself. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult didn't say anything. In the eyes of the high priestess and the others, due to the relationship between Li Jun and the Heavenly God Palace, many people subconsciously thought that Tung Qingshan was a member of the Heavenly God Palace. Therefore, Jing Yi should listen to orders. After all, he was one of the 3 foreign dignitaries of the Heavenly God Palace. The other 2 foreign dignitaries were also submissive in front of Pei San, the sovereign of the Heavenly God Palace. They completely regarded themselves as Pei San's subordinates. The Heavenly God Palace was too powerful. Of course, they had to submit to it. "It's just a blade-like Qi," the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult thought to herself. Who can't tell that he wants to steal the core of the godly armor? Whoosh! A beam of flowing light descended into the courtyard. It was Tung Qingshan, who wore the blood-red Hong Tian godly armor and held the splitting mountain axe in his hand. He stood on the six-legged blade-like Qi and held the other set of godly armor in one hand. This is the 2nd chapter. There's still the 3rd chapter. Brothers, give me some monthly tickets or something. It'll boost the tomatoes. Chapter 505. Pei San laughed as he stepped forward and said, "It seems like foreign dignitary Hua succeeded immediately and obtained 2 sets of godly armor. The armor he is wearing should be the Hong Tian godly armor. This set of godly armor is very suitable for a foreign dignitary." Tung Qingshan was an assassin in his previous life. In this life, he had gone through many hardships. His aura was very sharp, which matched well with the Hong Tian godly armor, which was filled with a strong killing aura. Palace Master is too kind. Tung Qingshan looked at the banquet. It seems that Head and the others are celebrating the great victory in Yuzhou province. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult, who was at the side, interrupted. Her melodious laughter rang out. Yes, we have achieved a great victory and occupied the entire Yuzhou. In the future, Qingzhou in the east, Yuzhou in the northeast, and the Great Prairie in the north will be united. Of course, this was a joyous occasion. However, the most despicable thing about the destruction of Hongtian City was that Yushur Jin had escaped with the godly armor. Fortunately, foreign dignitary Huha helped us retrieve the godly armor. Little Lien. Pei San frowned. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult was Pei San's daughter. When he was stubborn, even Pei San's words were useless. Foreign dignitary Huha, are you here to deliver the godly armor? The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult said with a smile. Oh, foreign dignitary Huha has done a great service. The heavenly god palace will remember this. Upon hearing these words, Tung Qingshan's expression darkened. Actually, the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult was in a bad mood after the battle in Hongtian City. Especially the severed arm of eldest martial brother Li Chao. Li Chao and the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult had grown up together and were as close as siblings. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult had long been furious. Moreover, because she was Pei San's daughter, Li Chao and the others gave in to her. Because of his wife's death, Pei San felt that he owed this daughter a lot. Hence, he doted on her even more. As a result, the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult was used to being domineering since she was young. In her opinion, wasn't Jing Yi snatching the godly armor at this time the same as snatching food from Tiger's mouth? Was he trying to snatch the treasures from the heavenly god palace? In addition, he had a belly full of anger today, so he naturally vented it. High priestess of the snowy lotus cult, do you mean that I have contributed by gifting the godly armor? Tung Qingshan frowned and asked, what contribution? As Tung Qingshan spoke, he stared at Pei San, the sovereign of the heavenly god palace. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult's domineering and malicious words infuriated Tung Qingshan. At most, he would just leave on the spot. After all, if it weren't for the six-legged blade-like Qi, the heavenly god palace would have been in a more passive position, let alone obtaining the godly armor. Foreign dignitary Huha, of course you have made a great contribution. Pei San took a step forward and stood in front of the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult. He smiled and said, when I asked you to chase after the six-legged blade-like Qi, I already told you. After you catch the 2 sets of god armors, you can choose one yourself. Give the other set to the heavenly god palace. The heavenly god palace will reward you handsomely. Foreign dignitary Huha, it seems that you have chosen the Hong Tian godly armor. Haha, I'm already wearing them. Pei San stared at the dark green godly armor in Tung Qingshan's hands and asked, you want to gift this set of godly armor? Immediately, the god of heaven Su Mingta, the sovereign of the sword sect Li Chao, the king of beasts Wu Ho, Pei Hao, and the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult all stared at Tung Qingshan, including Pei San himself. Obviously, Pei San's words indicated that the heavenly god palace definitely wanted a set of godly armor. If Tung Qingshan took the Hong Tian godly armor, they would take the other set. This was the bottom line. If Tung Qingshan was too greedy, Pei San would probably be very unhappy. If Pei San was unhappy, the consequences would be severe. Should he hand it over or not? Sovereign, Tung Qingshan said with a smile, since we have already agreed, of course, I agree. Since I already have the Hong Tian godly armor, this set of godly armor is useless. However what? Pei San and the others stared at Tung Qingshan. However, this set of godly armor lacks the outer armor of the upper body. Tung Qingshan shook his head and said, speaking of which, Yushur Jin was trying to stop me from getting the godly armor. He even colluded with Emperor Yuzhal. I used a lot of effort to obtain the godly armor. Only then did I obtain the godly armor. The outer armor of the upper body was taken by Yu Tonghai of Emperor Yuzhal. In order to obtain the godly armor, I became enemies with Emperor Yuzhal. Tung Shan smiled helplessly. Emperor Yu's Hall? Pei San smiled and said, when I saw the six-eared earth-drilling mouse, I guessed that it was related to Emperor Yu's Hall. The six-eared earth-drilling mouse loved the blazing dragon fruit, and Emperor Yu's Hall had the most of it. To become enemies with Emperor Yu's Hall for the godly armor. Don't worry, Emperor Yu's Hall might be arrogant sometimes, but Emperor Yu's Hall is very cautious. Because the heavenly god palace is involved, they won't act. As for the godly armor, it's fine even if it lacks the outer armor. Pei San said nonchalantly, the outer armor of the godly armor is rarely worn. Sovereign. Tung Shan smiled and handed the armor over. Seeing this, Pei San smiled satisfactorily. The god of heaven, Su Mingta, Pei Hao, and the others also heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. Oh! Pei San turned and instructed. Teacher, the king of beasts Wu Ho stepped forward. As far as I know, this dark green godly armor was left behind by an insightful emptiness realm ancestor of Hong Tian City, Yin Wu Shan. From today onwards, it belongs to you. Pei San handed the godly armor over solemnly. The king of beasts Wu Ho's eyes brightened with excitement. He took a deep breath and excitedly took the armor. To emptiness realm experts, there were very few treasures that could interest them. The godly armor was one of them. So, Pei San asked for the godly armor for his disciple to wear. Tung Shan thought to himself, no wonder he didn't ask for the Hong Tian godly armor. If he wore it himself, he would probably ask for the Hong Tian godly armor even more. However, he is an insightful emptiness realm expert. He can refine the godly armor himself. Naturally, a godly armor refined by oneself is more suitable than the godly armor left behind by other insightful emptiness realm experts. Tung Shan glanced at Pei San, but didn't see the godly armor. He is probably wearing it under his clothes. Hua. Tung Shan looked at Pei San. Pei San looked at Tung Shan and smiled. I said before that the heavenly god palace must thank you generously for giving the godly armor to the heavenly god palace. Tell me, what do you want as a reward? What reward? Tung Shan pondered. Tell me, the heavenly god palace is not as stingy as you. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult glanced at Tung Shan. Actually, ever since Tung Shan and Li Jun returned from Duamu continent and met the high priestess for the first time, the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult didn't like Tung Shan. Now, he didn't have much of a good impression of him. Tung Shan glanced at the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult and suddenly grinned. Sovereign, why don't the heavenly god palace attack Yangzhou and get it to me? Pei San froze. The other emptiness realm experts were also shocked by Tung Shan's words. Attack Yangzhou? Get it to him. That was one of the 9 states and one of the 2 most prosperous states. Only Yu state could compare to it. You. Pei San couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. Jing Yi, do you know how much manpower and resources are needed to conquer a prefecture? The heavenly god palace has been preparing for several hundred years. Now, we are able to conquer the Azure Prefecture and the Serenity Prefecture easily. Even so, the casualties of the heavenly god palace's soldiers during the attack on Yuzhou alone exceeded 1 million. Gold and silver are innumerable. Moreover, Ah Chao lost an arm because of this. Previously, when we exterminated Xiao Yao Palace, although they had infiltrated Qingzhou for a long time. However, the revenge of the old crook of Xiao Yao Palace still caused great losses to the heavenly god palace. Pei San smiled as he looked at Tung Shan and said, if you want me to give you Yangzhou, that's fine. You have to give me 5 sets of godly armor, 5 grass of immortality, and the favor I owe you. What do you think? 5 sets of godly armor, 5 grass of immortality, and a favor? Tung Shan was shocked. Actually, what Pei San said was just a joke. He could give away the territory of a prefecture just like that. Perhaps only the omnipotent experts could do that. No matter how powerful Pei San was, he couldn't bear to give away a prefecture. The price of conquering a prefecture was too great. Sovereign, 5 sets of godly armor, and 5 grass of immortality? Even if you kill me, I won't be able to gather that much. Tung Ching Shan shook his head and said with a smile, as for the reward, I didn't think of it at the moment. Since you didn't think of it, we'll talk about it when you think of it, Pei San said with a smile. Tung Ching Shan nodded. He cupped his hands and said, Sovereign, I have been away from East City for some days. I will take my leave now. Also, I'm going to bring little June back with me. Sovereign, everyone, you don't have to see me off. Under the gazes of Pei San and the others, Tung Ching Shan rode on the 6-legged blade like Qi and left the courtyard. He went to another residence in the city and took his wife, Li Jun. That night, he rushed to East City, Jiangning County, Yangzhou. High up in the night sky, the 6-legged blade like Qi flew through the sky. Tung Ching Shan sat cross-legged on the 6-legged blade like Qi. Li Jun reclined in Tung Ching Shan's arms and looked up at the stars in the sky. Ching Shan, did you really give me a set of godly armor? Li Jun was slightly shocked as she sat up. Of course. Tung Ching Shan shook his head and smiled. If I didn't give it to you, your teacher, the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult, would probably tear me apart. I know that you did it because of me. Li Jun turned to look at Tung Ching Shan and said apologetically, if it weren't for me, Ching Shan, you probably wouldn't need to get involved with the heavenly god palace. I know that teacher is a bit overbearing. Ching Shan, do you feel uncomfortable giving away the godly armor? Uncomfortable? Tung Ching Shan didn't care. He smiled and said, Little June, you can only gain if you give up something. I gave up a set of godly armor that is temporarily useless. At least the heavenly god palace promised to thank me generously. Moreover, I can use this opportunity to deal with the people of Emperor Yu's Hall with the heavenly god palace. Now it is time for me, Tung Ching Shan, to build my foundation. In the land of the 9 prefectures, my foundation is too weak. Since I am building my foundation, I naturally have to put in some effort. Tung Ching Shan smiled and said, I am stingy and not strong enough. Yet, I still want to prosper. Dream on. Li Jun nodded. Ching Shan, when little Blue comes, we won't have to do this anymore, right? Li Jun's eyes beamed as she said, although I'm the substitute high priestess of the snowy lotus cult, and it's quite impressive for me to be the substitute high priestess. Although I am the substitute high priestess of the snowy lotus cult, I feel that the heavenly god palace is holding me hostage. The heavenly god palace is using me to intimidate and influence you. Tung Ching Shan stretched out his hand and pulled Li Jun into his embrace. Don't worry. Soon, very soon, no one can influence us. Tomorrow is the 9th day of the 7th month. It will be 3 months before the 914 children start practicing the internal martial art. You should know how many disciples of the 3rd generation of the branch of internal martial art there are. Tung Ching Shan said softly. The 1st generation of the internal martial art only consisted of Tung Ching Shan. The 2nd generation consisted of Tung Shou and the others, and the 3rd generation consisted of these youths. Tung Ching Shan sat on the back of the 6-legged blade-like Qi and flew above the 9 heavens, looking up at the stars. Tung Ching Shan could vaguely see the future. The cultivators of the internal martial art were as numerous as the stars. This day will definitely come, Tung Ching Shan said to himself. Into the 3rd chapter, tenosynovitis relapsed as he typed these few days. His fingers were aching as he typed. However, he would definitely keep his promise. This month, he will continue to write, except for a few days during the annual meeting of the starting point. During the other 26 to 27 days, he will update at least 3 times a day. Sometimes, he will even go berserk. Therefore, everyone, give your monthly votes to tomatoes. Throw your votes at me. Give them all to tomatoes. Oh, no more monthly votes? Recommendation votes are fine too. As long as there are votes, tomatoes will do. Huh. Chapter 506. On the morning of the 9th day of the 7th month, in the vast training field of the Tung Ching Shan residence in East City, Big Brother Hung Ho, today is the 9th day of the 7th month, right? Yes, it is. Tung Hong Ho nodded and looked at the skinny youth beside him. There were a total of 914 youths in Tung Chingshan's residence. Therefore, there were at least 6 youths living in each house. Tung Hong Ho and the young man next to him slept in the neighboring houses. In these 3 months, the 2 youths had become like brothers. Xin, don't be discouraged. As long as there is hope, don't give up. I will tell you the main points of practicing the 3 postures and the monkey fist. You are doing very well. You might be able to make a breakthrough today. Tung Hong Ho encouraged the skinny youth. Fong Xin was 9 years old, but his body was thinner than his peers. When Fong Xin traveled from Jiangning County City to East City, his feet were covered in blisters, and he had to grit his teeth and endure. However, his body was naturally weak, so he could not produce inner strength. Every time Tung Hong Ho practiced together, he would give Fong Xin special treatment to help his good friend. With Tung Hong Ho's help, Fong Xin's monkey fist and 3 postures were almost as good as Tung Hong Ho's. However, he still could not produce inner strength. After practicing the internal martial arts for 3 months, the physical quality of the youth named Fong Xin had improved slightly, and his skin had become tanned. I will definitely make a breakthrough. I will definitely make a breakthrough. I will definitely become a powerful expert like Senior Jing Yi. Fong Xin clenched his fists and thought to himself. His childhood experiences had made him yearn to become a powerful expert. The recruitment of disciples by Tung Chingshan was obviously a bright path for them to become powerful experts. If they missed this opportunity, they would probably regret it for the rest of their lives. It's already the 9th day of the 7th month. We have been here for 3 months. Yes, today is the last day of practice. If I still can't produce inner strength, I will have to leave tomorrow. Some of the youths on the training field were whispering. Many of them had already given up. Teacher is here. Teacher is here. The martial arts field quietened down almost instantly. None of the youths dared to make a sound. At this moment, Tung Chingshan, who was dressed in a white robe, and Li Jun, who was dressed in a purple robe, walked out of the inner court and arrived at the training field in the outer court. If Tung Shou was said to have the aura of a wild beast, then Tung Chingshan was like a sword hidden in its scabbard, appearing gentle and refined. It's Senior Jing Yi. Look, it's really Senior Jing. These 914 youths couldn't help but let out an uproar. However, when Ting Shou's cold gaze swept across them, all the youths quieted down again. However, all of them were looking at Tung Chingshan, who was dressed in a white robe and looked like an elegant young master. These youths all knew that Senior Jing Yi was much more powerful than the legendary innate experts. At the front of the training field, Tung Shou stood respectfully at Tung Chingshan's side and whispered, "Teacher, among these 914 youths, those who have cultivated inner strength are all on the left side. There are a total of 92 youths. It's mainly at the end of the 2nd month and the beginning of the 3rd month that the number of people who have cultivated inner strength is the highest. During the 2nd half of the 3rd month, there are fewer and fewer people who have cultivated inner strength. 2 days ago and yesterday, no one had a breakthrough. 92 people?" Tung Chingshan looked down and saw that the 914 youths were divided into 2 groups. The disciples who had cultivated inner strength practiced together, and the disciples who hadn't cultivated inner strength practiced together. However, when Tung Chingshan looked over, almost all the youths tried their best to puff out their chests, and their eyes shone brightly. These youths, Tung Chingshan could see excitement, worship, and longing in their eyes. They longed to become experts. Back then, they were able to register and rush to East City from Jiangning County City on foot. If they didn't have the desire to become experts, why would they suffer like this? It's better than I expected. 92 people. Tung Chingshan revealed a smile. It's almost reached a ratio of 10 to 1. Oh, when the Gue Yuan sect helped to recruit, they had already eliminated the youths with poor balance and flexibility. If we include the youths who had signed up but failed the test. In other words, out of 20 youths, about 1 is suitable to practice internal martial arts. Tung Chingshan was satisfied with this ratio. After all, In the society of his previous life, the probability of cultivating internal martial arts to cultivate inner strength was much lower. Firstly, the physical quality of the ordinary people in his previous life was not as good as the people of the land of the 9 prefectures. Secondly, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was insufficient in his previous life. This caused the difference between the two worlds. 8th of April. Suddenly, Tung Qingshan opened his mouth. His voice wasn't loud, but it resounded in the ears of every youth. All the youths held their breath and listened carefully. You have all traveled more than 300 li on foot to arrive here. From the 9th of April onwards, a total of 914 of you will begin to receive my unique set of fist arts. And today, the 9th of July, today is the last day for you to practice fist arts. According to what I said before, today you can practice fist arts seriously as usual. Also, your teacher, Tung Shou, will be here to teach you. And tomorrow, among the 914 of you, if you haven't cultivated inner strength, you will be sent back to Jiangning. Tung Qingshan's cold gaze swept through everyone's hearts. Remember, on the last day, you will stay here and cultivate with me, or you will leave. It's this last day. Tung Qingshan's voice seemed to have a strange magic power, reverberating in the minds of every youth. Many of the youths clenched their fists, and an extreme desire arose in their hearts. Start practicing fist arts, Tung Qingshan ordered Tung Shou, then turned around and left the outer court with Li Junha. After returning to the inner court, Tung Qingshan could clearly hear the sounds of breathing and breathing in the outer court. The aura of these youths seemed to have suddenly become much stronger. Qingshan, what did you do just now? Li Jun laughed. I just used some small tricks. Tung Qingshan laughed. In the last sentence, he used his powerful spirit to hypnotize these youths, awakening the desire in their hearts and magnifying the desire in their hearts. Actually, hypnosis was just a small technique. For example, the god of heaven mountain, the great monk Su Mengta, could even affect innate experts with just his gaze. Back then, outside of Hongtian City, Su Mengta actually used his voice to influence the nearly 80,000 cavalrymen of Hongtian City, who were determined to die. In the end, it was Yushir Jin and his brother who used their voices to awaken their subordinates. It wasn't difficult for Tung Qingshan to use his hypnosis to influence these children. In the evening, Teacher, Tung Shou ran over with a look of pleasant surprise. He ran to the side of Tung Qingshan, who was sitting cross-legged on the training field of the inner court. What's the matter? Tung Qingshan opened his eyes. Teacher, for more youths made a breakthrough today, Tung Shou said hastily. Tung Shou hastily said, maybe teacher's words were effective. On the last day, for people actually produced inner strength. Tung Qingshan smiled. After 3 months of hard work, it was only natural that the psychological pressure on the last day was immense. Tung Qingshan had half hypnotized and guided them, which made them even more eager. Tung Qingshan had expected 4 of them to make a breakthrough. In the dormitory of the group of youths, the bed, which was more than 3 zhang, 8 meters, long, took up almost half of the entire room. Aside from the edge of the bed, which was used to store items, a total of 6 youths were sleeping on the bed. I made it. I finally made a breakthrough. A handsome youth was jumping around in the dormitory. He was one of the 4 youths who made a breakthrough today. One could imagine how happy he was when he made a breakthrough on the last day. At this moment, Tung Hongho was accompanying the skinny Fong Xian. Fong Xian curled up on the bed and leaned against the wall. Tears welled up in his eyes. Beside him, Tung Hongho whispered, Xian, don't be sad. Actually, Tung Hongho wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. Tomorrow, he would be separated from Fong Xian. One of them would become a powerful expert in the land of the 9 prefectures in the future. The other would become a lowly figure in the land of the 9 prefectures. Brother Hongho, don't say any more. Fong Xian shook his head and pursed his lips. Tung Hongho's heart stirred, and he hastily said, Tomorrow will be the final decision on who will leave. You might make a breakthrough tonight. Tonight? Fong Xin raised his head, and his eyes lit up. On the night of the 9th day of the 7th month, many youths didn't sleep. Instead, they practiced their fist techniques at night. They all desired to cultivate inner strength before the decision tomorrow. On the morning of the 10th day of the 7th month, the hot summer morning was very refreshing. However, although some of the 914 youths were in a good mood, most of them felt sad. Although they had stayed up late to practice their fist techniques, none of the youths felt sleepy. Everyone gathered on the training field. There was complete silence. At the front of the training field stood 4 people. Their teacher, Tung Shou, their idol, Senior Jing Yi, and Senior Jing Yi's wife. There was also the sovereign of the Gui Yuan sect, Zhuge Yuanhong. Today is the 10th day of the 7th month. Tung Qingshan looked at the 914 youths and said loudly, "Those of you who have cultivated inner strength can stay. You can practice more profound fist techniques and become more powerful. Those of you who haven't cultivated inner strength will have to return to the Gui Yuan sect." Since last night, has anyone managed to cultivate any more inner strength? Many youths looked around. Silence. Complete silence. No one had managed to break through last night. As expected, Tung Qingshan thought to himself, the mental pressure was too great, and they didn't have the help of my hypnosis. How could they have broken through? Good. In other words, 96 of you have cultivated inner strength. As for the other 818, I will ask the Gui Yuan sect to send you back to Jiangning. As soon as Tung Qingshan finished speaking, many youths on the training field burst into tears. Some of them even cried out loud. 3 months of hard work, the desire to become a powerful expert. They had failed. After all, apart from Tung Hongho, the oldest was only 10 years old. Men bleed, but not cry. Ting Shou suddenly shouted, causing many youths to stop crying. 3 months. Tung Qingshan said, "You have been here for 3 months. Today, all 914 youths, your teacher, Tung Shou, and I will practice the 3 postures together. We will practice the 3 postures together. This is the last time." Tung Qingshan assumed the starting position of the 3 postures. Immediately, Tung Shou assumed the starting position of the 3 postures as well. The 914 youths on the training field assumed the starting position in unison. Everyone, including Tung Qingshan, practiced one move after another. Many of the youths held back their tears as they practiced. The 818 youths knew they had failed. They had been sentenced to death. Although they were sad, they felt relaxed like never before. There was no more burden or pressure. Especially under Tung Qingshan's lead, everyone's fist art had been practiced to an unprecedented level. In terms of cultivation level, Tung Qingshan was obviously much higher than Tung Shou. One punch, another punch, this is the last time. The skinny youth, Fong Xin, was also immersed in the fist technique. Now that he knew he had failed, he no longer felt any pressure. At this moment, when he imitated Tung Qingshan's fist technique, he actually had a hint of inner strength. Unknowingly, a trace of inner strength had been born in his body. The loud voices of the youths resounded throughout the training field and soared into the sky. Chapter 1. Chapter 507. The 10th day of the 7th month was a day filled with both sadness and happiness. Many youths left dejectedly. However, to everyone's surprise, during the last practice under Tung Qingshan's guidance, 2 youths managed to cultivate inner strength. One of them was Fong Xin. These 2 youths only realized that they had inner strength after practicing. The 2 were so excited that they cried on the spot. Since then, there were 98 disciples of the 3rd generation of internal martial art. The remaining 816 youths were escorted to the Gui Yuan sect by the army dispatched by Zhuge Yuanhong. In the Gui Yuan sect, these 816 youths would also have the opportunity to learn the secret technique of inner strength. If they successfully cultivated inner strength, they could still become disciples of the Gui Yuan sect. If they failed to cultivate the secret technique of inner strength, they could only leave the Gui Yuan sect dejectedly. That afternoon, dark clouds covered the sky. The weather was hot and stuffy, and the sound of cicadas could be heard from time to time. In the inner court, teacher, Tung Shou and Shui Exen, who both had strong bodies, stood respectfully in front of Tung Qingshan. Shui Exen, how is the development of the Xiong Shou gang in the Taiyang mountain range? Tung Qingshan inquired. Shui Exen answered respectfully, Teacher, everything in the Xiong Shou gang is in order. Now, there are a total of 8,000 brave men in the gang. According to Second Martial Brother, the gang won't expand for the time being and will maintain the number of 8,000 men. In the Taiyang mountain range, with 8,000 men and the whole Gale Eagle, we won't need to fear any gangs. Now, the whole Gale Eagle would usually stay in East City and the Taiyang mountain range. In the Xiong Shou gang, the 8,000 bandits led by Yang Dong treated the whole Gale Eagle very respectfully. They gave the whole Gale Eagle all kinds of roasted wild beast meat to the whole Gale Eagle. They even hired a good chef to prepare delicious food for the whole Gale Eagle. Now, the whole Gale Eagle was like a fish in water in the Xiong Shou gang. Yes, Tung Qingshan nodded slightly and said, Shui Exen, from today onwards, you will stay with me. You will teach those youths with your eldest martial brother. There are a total of 98 youths. Half of them will become your eldest senior brother's disciples, while the other half will become your disciples. Teaching these youths is of utmost importance. You must not be careless. Tung Qingshan's gaze sharpened. Yes, master, Shui Exen answered hastily. Your fist technique isn't as good as your eldest senior brother's, but it's more than enough to teach these youths. Each of you will take in 49 disciples. 10 years later, these youths will all grow up. I want to see which of the two of you has the best disciple. I will reward those who teach better. Tung Qingshan's words aroused the competitiveness of Tung Shou and Shui Exen. For his master to call it a precious treasure, it was definitely not an ordinary item. Eldest senior brother, I'm not as strong as you, but the disciples I teach won't be any weaker than you. Eldest martial brother, you have to be careful. Shui Exen cupped his hands and said with a smile. Tung Shou only cupped his hands and didn't say anything. After handing over the task of teaching the youths to his two disciples, Tung Qingshan felt relieved. On the morning of the next day, Tung Qingshan and Zhuge Yuanhong walked on the road of the outer court. Master, have the Gui Yuan sect sent people to the heavenly cloud mountain in Qingzhou? Tung Qingshan asked hastily. Don't worry, Zhuge Yuanhong said with a smile. I have sent 10 people to live at the foot of the heavenly cloud mountain and asked them to pay attention to the heavenly cloud mountain every day. Once the heavenly cloud mountain is set ablaze, the Gui Yuan sect will receive the news as soon as possible. Moreover, I have also instructed them to send the news to you in East City as soon as possible when the news is sent to Jiangning County. Tung Qingshan nodded. Today was the 11th day of the 7th month. Logically, the undying phoenix, Little Blue, could arrive in the land of the 9 prefectures at any time. When the undying phoenix arrives, Qingshan, the Gui Yuan sect, Zhuge Yuanhong said with a smile. Yes, once the undying phoenix arrives, it will be time to act. Tung Qingshan's eyes were sharp as he said, After all, it will be very difficult for me to occupy and defend Yangzhou alone. Even Pei San of the Heavenly God Palace had many Emptiness Realm experts to help him, which was why he was invincible. It was far from enough to rely on one person. The Gui Yuan sect has endured for too long. Zhuge Yuanhong took a deep breath and said, Qingshan, pay attention to the heavenly cloud mountain. I will pay attention to it as well. Don't worry. On the same day, Zhuge Yuanhong returned to Jiangning County City. It was noon on a hot summer day, and the sun was extremely fierce. Tung Qingshan wore an azure cloak and was practicing his spear art in the inner court. For a moment, the shadows of his body and the spear blended together, and the naked I couldn't see them clearly. The surrounding space trembled as the power of the heavens and earth was attracted by Tung Qingshan's spear art. Colorful lights gathered. Qingshan, Qingshan. Li Jun walked out of the house with a frown. Tung Qingshan stopped and ran over. Little Jun, what's wrong? My stomach feels a little uncomfortable. Something is wrong, Li Jun said. Tung Qingshan's heart thumped when he heard this. She had already reached the innate realm, and it was almost impossible for an innate expert to have an upset stomach. Then, could it be she's pregnant? However, in his domain, Li Jun's stomach didn't have any aura of soul. Maybe there was a reaction just now, but there was no aura of life. Tung Qingshan thought. Li Jun had already reached the innate realm, and the sensitivity of an innate expert's body was much stronger than that of an ordinary person. If she was really pregnant, even if there was a slight reaction at the beginning, Li Jun would be able to sense that something was wrong. Pregnant? Giving birth? Tung Qingshan was confused. Even in his previous life, he didn't have any experience. Even a guess made Tung Qingshan panic. Little Jun, come here. Tung Qingshan pulled Li Jun toward the pavilion. You don't need to support me. I can walk. Li Jun was slightly confused. No, it's better to be careful. Tung Qingshan appeared very cautious. Qingshan, what's wrong? Li Jun didn't expect that she was pregnant and was slightly puzzled. Tung Qingshan didn't say anything. Instead, he asked Li Jun to sit down carefully. He first felt Li Jun's pulse, but he didn't feel the tiny pulse of a baby. However, Tung Qingshan didn't care. He then stretched out his hand and gently stroked Li Jun's stomach. A trace of warm earth elemental power of the heavens and earth seeped into Li Jun's body. The traces of power of the heavens and earth were beneficial to all living beings. Tung Qingshan didn't dare to use his supreme force to investigate. With his control over the power of the heavens and earth, Tung Qingshan faintly felt that something was wrong with Li Jun's stomach. What's wrong, Qingshan? Li Jun was slightly confused. Tung Qingshan was very clear about the internal structure of the human body. With the power of the heavens and earth, Tung Qingshan's mind naturally appeared the various parts of Li Jun's body. This, Tung Qingshan felt an extremely small thing. It was probably not even the size of a finger, and it was even smaller. What's wrong, Qingshan? Li Jun was slightly frightened. Tung Qingshan raised his head and looked at Li Jun. He smiled helplessly and said, Little Jun, I'm also sure. I suspect that you are pregnant. However, I didn't feel the pulse of pregnancy. However, I feel that inside your body. Tung Qingshan couldn't explain it clearly. How about this? Wait for another 7 days, and we should be able to confirm it. Qingshan, are you saying that I'm pregnant? Li Jun widened her eyes. I'm not sure. In another 7 days, we should be able to confirm it, Tung Qingshan said. Li Jun was slightly stunned. Don't panic, don't panic. We will know in a few days, Tung Qingshan said hastily. Both husband and wife had no experience at all. Even though one was the substitute high priestess of the snowy lotus cult, and the other was an emptiness realm expert, they still panicked. They were pleasantly surprised, expectant, and fearful. They were worried that this was a joke. It was Tung Qingshan who made a mistake in his investigation. As the days passed, Tung Qingshan checked Li Jun's body almost every day. It's slightly bigger. Tung Qingshan was slightly surprised. According to Tung Qingshan's understanding of a human body, that little thing was in Li Jun's uterine cavity. It was a very, very small thing. It was even smaller than a finger. However, the speed of its growth was still relatively fast. It's only been 6 days. 6 days ago, it was only a little bit bigger. And 6 days later, it actually doubled in size. Tung Qingshan was somewhat certain in his heart. Ever since Tung Qingshan discovered that Li Jun was suspected to be pregnant, aside from comprehending Tao and cultivating, he spent most of his time on Li Jun. On the 8th day, Li Jun sat nervously beside the pavilion. Tung Qingshan was feeling Li Jun's pulse, feeling it very carefully. How is it? Do you have a pulse? Li Jun asked hastily. How meticulous was Tung Qingshan's sensing ability? Gradually, Tung Qingshan could barely feel a trace of Li Jun's strong pulse the extremely weak pulse. However, this trace of pulse made Tung Qingshan's face flush with excitement. Li Jun, who was beside him, was so nervous that she jumped in fright. "Qingshan, how is it? How is it?" Li Jun asked hastily. "Yes, yes, yes." Tung Qingshan nodded hastily. The expression on his face was very strange. He seemed to be smiling and crying at the same time. "Have a child? Will I have a child?" Scenes from his previous and current lives flashed before his eyes. He was already used to being alone and had never been a father. However, now he knew that he was going to be a father. This feeling was very strange. His mind was dizzy, and he didn't know what he was thinking. At this moment, deep rumbling sounds of thunder came from the dark clouds in the sky. Soon, a loud rumbling sound could be heard. Tung Qingshan hastily pulled Li Jun and said, "Quick, it's going to rain. Let's go into the house." Okay. For the first time, Li Jun was also emotionally shocked. Inside the house, Tung Qingshan carried Li Jun to the bed and covered her with a blanket. "Little Jun, from today onwards, don't practice the whip art. Take good care of your body," Tung Qingshan said in an unprecedented solemn tone. "Okay." Li Jun nodded, and a blush appeared on her face. Tung Qingshan suddenly straightened his body and muttered, "What do I have to pay attention to when I'm pregnant? I have to go and ask." "Little Jun, you rest first." After speaking softly, Tung Qingshan opened the door and rushed out of the house. Boom, voila! At this moment, a heavy downpour was falling. Under the curtain of rain, Tung Qingshan felt an excitement he had never felt before. Huh! Tung Qingshan suddenly looked up at the sky and raised his hands high. He laughed wantonly and said, "Heavens, in my previous life and in this life, you finally gave me a child. Ha! I also have a child. Ha!" At this moment, Tung Qingshan was even more excited and happy than when he attained enlightenment and reached the emptiness realm. The weak pulse that he felt earlier was even more frightening to Tung Qingshan than when he was struck by lightning. I have to go and ask the doctor." Tung Qingshan transformed into a beam of light and disappeared from the inner court. This is the second chapter. Our Qingshan is going to be a father. There is still the third chapter. Chapter 508. The mansion was specially equipped with a physician. This physician came to check on Li Jun, but he didn't find any signs of pregnancy. However, after 3 days, when the fetus grew a bit bigger, the physician finally felt the pulse of pregnancy. Immediately, the entire mansion was immersed in a celebratory atmosphere. Tung Qingshan also laughed every day. When Zhuge Yuanhong found out, he personally came to visit. On the 28th day of the 7th month, Li Jun was sitting on a recliner, smiling as she looked at Tung Qingshan, who was practicing the 3 postures and pondering the Tao of life and death. "I know that Li Jun is pregnant, but I didn't expect that practicing the fist art and comprehending the Tao would be smoother." Tung Qingshan closed his eyes and recalled some of the mysteries he had just comprehended. Immediately, he opened his eyes and looked towards Li Jun, who was at the side of the training field. With this glance, Tung Qingshan was slightly stunned. Li Jun, who was lying quietly, had a motherly glow on her face. No wonder people say that pregnant women are the most beautiful. Tung Qingshan thought to himself. Then he walked over. "Qingshan, have you finished practicing?" Li Jun smiled and said, "I've been thinking about what we should call our child after he is born. How should we teach him in the future?" "Name?" Tung Qingshan pondered and said, "I am of the Qing generation, and my child will be of the Hong generation. Tung Hong Tao? Tung Hongning? Tung Hong Yen? I haven't even decided on the gender, so I have to think about what to call him. How about this? It's still early for the child to be born. I will ask my parents in the future." Li Jun was stunned and nodded. "Yes, we should ask father and mother." Father and mother still don't know. When Tung Qingshan thought of his parents, he couldn't help but smile. His father, Tung Yongfan, was a very traditional father. When Tung Qingshan was about to turn 16, his father told him to quickly get married and have children. Moreover, he wanted him to marry a few more. In his father's eyes, only capable men could have multiple wives and concubines. In the eyes of parents, the inheritance of incense was very important. Soon, when the time comes, I'll announce my identity in front of my parents and tell them that I'm married and have a child. When Ting Qingshan thought of his parents' expressions in that situation, he couldn't help but look forward to it. Tung Qingshan squatted down and placed his ear on Li Jun's abdomen. Little June, when the child is born in the future, if the child is a girl, I must teach her to be a well-educated, well-mannered, and gentle woman. Well, the girl doesn't need to be too strong, but she has to at least be an innate master. If it's a man, then this man needs to be more powerful. We need to nurture him into an emptiness realm expert. Tung Qingshan leaned against Li Jun's abdomen and listened as he spoke. Li Jun couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. Innate realm? Emptiness realm? Why, you don't believe me? Tung Qingshan raised his head. I do. Li Jun nodded hastily. Just then, bang, bang. The sound of knocking came from the courtyard's door. Your Highness the Saintess, there are some internal matters that require your Highness's approval. A pleasant voice rang. Tung Qingshan frowned and walked to the courtyard's door, opening it. A green-clothed girl was standing at the door, holding a large amount of paper that was 1 foot thick. Li Jun was the substitute high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. There were many matters of the Snowy Lotus cult that required her approval. Lord, the green-clothed girl hastily bowed. Tung Qingshan frowned and said hastily, Don't bother your Highness the Saintess with these trivial matters. She is unwell. Last time when I wasn't here, you gave her so many letters to read. This time, I'll tell you directly, send all these away. Don't bother your Highness the Saintess without my permission. Do you understand? But the High Priestess, the green-clothed girl hesitated. The Saintess is unwell. She can't read these. You can report this to your High Priestess, Tung Qingshan ordered. The green-clothed girl was stunned. She hastily bowed and said, Yes, Lord. The green-clothed girl held the thick stack of paper and left quickly. A thin candle was burning in a gloomy study in Yuzhou province. Dressed in a black cloak, Pei San sat before the study table and was reading a blue-bound book. Sovereign Father, a voice sounded from outside. Come in. Pei San put down the book. Pei Shulian, who was dressed in a purple cloak, and a great monk, who was dressed in a red monk robe, walked in side by side. Sumingta. Pei San raised his head and looked at the great monk. He ordered, The god of Heaven Mountain's immortal guards should have entered Qingzhou by now. Sovereign, the god of heaven, Su Mengta nodded and said, The 100,000 immortal guards have entered Qingzhou. They have also met up with the 40,000 Blood Lotus soldiers of the Snowy Lotus cult. There are a total of 140,000 soldiers. Pei San looked at Pei Shulian. Pei Shulian smiled and said, Father, I personally arranged the matters in Qingzhou. Little June is with Huhan now. She said that she is unwell and doesn't care about the cult's affairs. In Qingzhou, the 800,000 soldiers, who have been recuperating for the past few months, have set off towards the border between Qingzhou and Yangzhou. I estimate that they should be able to assemble within a month. Ordinary armies are too slow. Pei San shook his head. Do you think it's easy to recruit the immortal guards and Blood Lotus soldiers? Pei Shulian curled her lips and said helplessly, The great monk, Su Mengta, has the entire Great Prairie as his foundation. Even after hundreds of years, he only has 100,000 immortal guards. The Snowy Lotus cult has been in Qingzhou for over 100 years, but we only have 40,000 Blood Lotus soldiers. The Immortal Guards and Blood Lotus soldiers were comparable to the soldiers of the Silver Dragon Army and the Black Armor Corps. Every single one of the soldiers possessed inner strength. Pei San stood up and walked to the window. The dim candlelight illuminated Pei San's black cloak, making him look even more frightening. Pei San said in a deep voice, Little Lien, it's time for the energy slaughterers under the Heavenly God Palace to move. I want you to personally arrange for the 12,000 Energy Destroyer Guardians to head over there. This time we must conquer Yangzhou. Energy slaughterers? Pei Shiwen was overjoyed when she heard this. The great monk, Su Mingta, was shocked as well. The heavenly god palace had a few branches, and the god of heaven mountain had the most soldiers. However, the Blood Lotus Army and the Immortal Guards were the troops of the various branches. The Energy Slaughterers were the most elite troops of the heavenly god palace. It was said that every member of the Energy Slaughterers wore top-notch armor. Moreover, every soldier of the Energy Slaughterer was a first-rated warrior. This was an army composed entirely of first-rated warriors. Pei Shiwen thought to herself, if Senior Marshal Brother didn't go to the Great Yin Mountain, there wouldn't be so many Energy Slaughterers. However, Father didn't send the Energy Slaughterers to attack Qingzhou and Yuzhou. Father didn't even send the Energy Slaughterers, but attacking Yangzhou. Pei Shiwen was very confident, as she said, Yangzhou will be conquered quickly this time. The destruction of Qingzhou in the east relied on the foundation of the heavenly god palace in Qingzhou. The destruction of Yuzhou in the northeast relied on the ferocious army of the god of heaven mountain. The vast army and the emptiness realm experts were enough to devour the entire Yuzhou. The soldiers are already tired. Payson stood in front of the window and said in a deep voice, Qinghu Island will learn from them and use small armies to launch sneak attacks. Therefore, this time, we will use the elites to conquer Yangzhou. The 140,000 soldiers of the Snow Lotus Army and the Immortal Guards are enough to fight against an army of 1,000,000. There are also the Energy Slaughterers. All of them are first-rated warriors. There are 12,000 of them. No city can stop them. Defeat them with one strike. Let the elite army lead the 800,000 ordinary soldiers and sweep the entire Yangzhou. The corners of Pei San's mouth curled into a smile. It was as if the entire Yangzhou had collapsed under the attack of Pei San's army. You guys can leave. Little Lien, the 800,000 soldiers must gather at the border as soon as possible, Pei San said as he waved his hand. Yes. Pei Shiwen and the god of heaven, Su Mingta, left respectfully, leaving Pei San standing in front of the window alone in the study room. Pei San's eyes narrowed, and a terrifying glint could be seen in his eyes as he said, Mani Temple. Mani Temple. Don't worry. They will be here soon. Currently, Tung Qingshan was still immersed in the joy of becoming a father. He had no idea that a bloody storm was about to descend. Jiangning County City, in the study room of the Gui Yuan Sex Zhuge Yuan Hong. Sovereign, this is an urgent report from Qingzhou. A silver-haired elder dressed in an azure cloak placed a small stack of papers on Zhuge Yuan Hong's desk respectfully. Zhuge Yuan Hong took the papers calmly and flipped through them. As he read, his expression became more and more unsightly. Phew! Zhuge Yuan Hong stood up. You can leave now, Zhuge Yuan Hong said as he waved his hand. Yes. After the silver-haired elder left, Zhuge Yuan Hong closed the door and windows of the study room. Then, he ran to the bookshelf at the side and took out 5 sheets of papers from a thick book. He put the 5 sheets of papers together with the 6 sheets of papers he had just received. So that's how it is. Zhuge Yuan Hong looked at the contents of the 11 sheets of papers and thought to himself, it seems that the army that has just appeared at the border of Qingzhou and Yangzhou should be an elite army, like the Black Armored Corps. If this is the case, then it makes sense. Also, I didn't know that there was such a deep meaning behind these redeployments. Ever since Qingzhou was taken over by the Snowy Lotus cult, the Snowy Lotus cult had reorganized a large number of surrendered troops that originally belonged to Xiaoyao Palace. They were relocated from their original encampment and stationed in another place. Due to the frequent redeployment of troops during this period of time, although Zhuge Yuan Hong felt that something was amiss when he received the previous report, he didn't dare to confirm it. However, after combining the 2 pieces of information, Zhuge Yuan Hong deduced a shocking conclusion based on the various clues and clues. The Heavenly God Palace will launch a surprise attack on Yangzhou soon. Zhuge Yuan Hong's forehead was sweating. Most people in the land of the 9 prefectures believe that after the Heavenly God Palace destroyed Xiaoyao Palace and Hongtian City and occupied 2 prefectures, they would rest and recuperate. Moreover, various reports indicated that many of the Great Prairie Army had begun to retreat to the Great Prairie. Without the Great Prairie Army, how could the Heavenly God Palace attack the other prefectures? Therefore, people in the land of the 9 prefectures were enjoying this peace. They would only wake up when the Heavenly God Palace began to launch a devastating attack. That night, Zhuge Yuanhong left Jiangning County City and rushed to Yi City. Bang! Bang! Sound of knocking could be heard continuously. It's so late at night. Why did teacher come here? Tung Qingshan put on his clothes and ran out of the house. He opened the courtyard door and saw Zhuge Yuanhong standing outside with an anxious expression on his face. Teacher, coming quickly. As Tung Qingshan led Zhuge Yuanhong in, he asked, "What made teacher come so late at night?" At this time, the city gate was already closed. Zhuge Yuanhong jumped over the city wall and entered Yi City. Take a look at these first. Zhuge Yuanhong didn't say much and handed over a stack of papers. I have circled some of the most important information. These days, Tung Qingshan had been in a good mood. However, at this moment, he felt a knot in his heart. His teacher's expression made Tung Qingshan realize that this matter was probably very serious. 3 chapters completed. Tomato has been working hard. Give the monthly votes and recommendation votes to Tomato. Chapter 509. It was late at night, and there was no moonlight tonight. It was almost impossible to see one's fingers if one stretched out one's hand. However, Tung Qingshan's eyes were fixed on the stack of papers in his hands. After reading one paper, he flipped to the next one. He mainly focused on the information that Zhuge Yuanhong had circled. The more he read, the more ghastly Tung Qingshan's expression became. I didn't expect Pei San to be so ambitious. He just destroyed Hong Tian city of Yuzhou with great difficulty. Now, he is actually preparing to attack Yangzhou. These days, Tung Qingshan was in a good mood and accompanied his wife to wait for the birth of their child. But who would have thought that something like this would happen at this critical juncture? Master! Tung Qingshan closed the paper and looked at Zhuge Yuanhong, who was beside him. According to the information, the Heavenly God Palace is indeed going to attack Yangzhou. What do you say? What shall we do now? What can we do? Zhuge Yuanhong shook his head and said, "Since the Heavenly God Palace has decided to send out their troops, the Heavenly God Palace will definitely send out their troops. My Gue Yuan sect. Don't talk about my Gue Yuan sect, even if it's Qinghu Island. They couldn't stop him at all. The only way now is to follow Qingshan's path. Qingshan, you and the emptiness realm experts of the Heavenly God Palace." "Yes, I know them all." Tung Qingshan nodded. Then he shook his head and said, "The others are fine. However, the daughter of the sovereign of the Heavenly God Palace, who is also the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, doesn't really like me." Zhuge Yuanhong nodded. In fact, he thought about what he should do while he was traveling at top speed. He'd thought about how to deal with this calamity, and he'd come up with a plan in his heart. "Qingshan," Zhuge Yuanhong said solemnly. "Master, please speak." "I'm listening." Tung Qingshan was also listening attentively. Zhuge Yuanhong said solemnly, "Now, it is impossible for us to stop the Heavenly God Palace with our strength. Therefore, we need you, Qingshan, to take action. Qingshan, you'd better take Li Jun to Qingzhou." It was useless to talk to others. If he wanted to meet someone, he should meet the palace master of the Heavenly God Palace. Talk to Pei San, the palace lord himself. How? Tung Qingshan was also very anxious. Pei San was not an ordinary person. Furthermore, he was able to endure for hundreds of years. Once he erupted, he first destroyed Qingzhou's Xiaoyao Palace, then Yozhou's Hong Tian City. Now, he even wanted to head south to Yangzhou. Such power. Could he stop it with just a few words? This is a negotiation. First, you have to be clear. Why did Pei San attack in such a hurry? What was the purpose of the attack? Is he trying to satisfy his ambitions? Or does he have other motives? In short, you have to know what he wants to do. Then, we will persuade him from his point of view, let him understand that it is very disadvantageous for him to send out his troops now. And Qin Shan, you should be able to tell. Zhuge Yuanhong frowned and said, normally, if the Heavenly God Palace wanted to occupy more territories and make the Heavenly God Palace more glorious and influential, the Heavenly God Palace wouldn't be able to do so. Because in Qingzhou and Yuzhou, the Heavenly God Palace won't be able to bind the 600 million people of Qingzhou and Yuzhou with them for at least 10 to 20 years. Now that they are attacking, they are relying on the strength that they have been accumulating for hundreds of years. The safest way is for them to rest for 10 to 20 years. Then, they can train millions of loyal soldiers in Qingzhou and Yuzhou. Then, with the advantages of Qingzhou, Yuzhou, and the Great Prairie, they can sweep Yangzhou and Yinzhou with over 10 million soldiers. They can even compete with the Mani Temple. Tung Qingshan nodded slightly. Qingzhou and Yuzhou had just been conquered, but Xiaoyao Palace and Hongtian City had a long history. They had planted their troops in every city and every place. Their troops were deeply rooted. Even now, many troops of Xiaoyao Palace and Hongtian City were stationed in Qingzhou and Yuzhou. If the Heavenly God Palace wanted to truly control these two places, they would need at least 10 to 20 years. If they don't manage their territories properly after conquering them, what's the point of conquering more territories? Zhuge Yuanhong frowned and said, therefore, I suspect that this Heavenly God Palace might have other motives. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that the Heavenly God Palace is very confident and wants to conquer the 3 prefectures in one go. Tung Qingshan nodded hastily. All right, teacher. I will make some preparations and bring little June to Qingzhou immediately. Tung Qingshan said hastily. Yes, this matter cannot be delayed. Zhuge Yuanhong sighed and said, Qingshan, if the Heavenly God Palace agrees to let the Gue Yuan sect stay in Jiangning County, it will be fine. Then it will be fine. I don't want you to break off relations with the Heavenly God Palace. Tung Qingshan nodded. He knew the importance of this matter. However, he had a trump card. Little June. Tung Qingshan hastily ran into the house and told Li Jun about the current situation. When Li Jun heard about it, she was shocked. She knew Tung Qingshan's plan very well. Therefore, without hesitation, Li Jun immediately put on her clothes and left with Tung Qingshan. On the first day of the 8th lunar month, in the middle of the night, Tung Qingshan, wearing the Hongtian godly armor, left Yi City with Li Jun and the 6-legged blade-like Qi. They flew northward toward Qingzhou. As for Tung Qingshan's departure, he would also decide the fate of nearly 300 million people in Yangzhou, who would rule the prosperous Yangzhou in the land of the 9 prefectures. The nearly 300 million people in Yangzhou were living their own lives. They didn't know that Yangzhou was in the most dangerous situation. The oldest city in Yuzhou, Yu City, was located in the center of the land of the 9 prefectures. Because of the Yuyang Grand Canal, Yu City became the most prosperous city in the land of the 9 prefectures. In the center of Yu City was the luxurious and ancient Emperor Yu's palace. After thousands of years of repair, maintenance, and expansion, the entire palace complex looked even more domineering. The merchants and warriors who came to Yu City all gasped in admiration when they passed by the palace complex. To outsiders, Emperor Yu's hall claimed that this was their lair. Indeed, the sovereign of Emperor Yu's hall and the others were all here. However, only a few core disciples of Emperor Yu's hall knew that the mountain range outside of Yu City was the foundation of Emperor Yu's hall. This mountain range was called the Blind Bear Mountain Range by the locals of the outskirts of Yu City. This was because there were many groups of black bears in the mountain range. These black bears were usually pitch black in color and had purple pupils. Every black bear had astonishing strength. Moreover, there were demonic beasts among the groups of black bears. Therefore, ordinary hunters didn't dare to enter the Blind Bear Mountain Range. At most, they would hunt at the edge of the mountain range. These groups of black bears became the best cover for the foundation of Emperor Yu's hall. In the depths of the mountain range, there were over 10 palaces. The Emptiness Realm experts of Emperor Yu's Hall and the wind-splitting Dragon Falcon were here most of the time. They would only go to the city occasionally. Moreover, this place was very close to the city. If there was any movement, they would be able to provide assistance immediately. Little Black, Big Black. A green-clothed girl threw 2 fruits at 2 little black bears nearby. One of the 2 little black bears was slightly bigger, while the other was slightly smaller. Obviously, they were still in their infancy. The 2 simple and honest little bears grabbed the fruits and nibbled on them. The green-clothed girl couldn't help but smile at this scene. Nearby, there were some huge black bears walking around the palace. Some of the black bears even rubbed their fat buttocks against the walls of the palace, appearing to be very relaxed. These black bears were mostly 2 zhang tall. However, these black bears got along very well with humans. They wouldn't attack the humans here. Junior Marshal's sister, Junior Marshal's sister. A white-cloaked young man quickly walked over. Senior Marshal brother? The green-clothed girl looked at the young man in confusion. I want to see Marshal Ancestor Lu. Do you know where he is? The white-cloaked young man hastily asked. Marshal Ancestor? I saw Marshal Ancestor Lu go to the sacred palace. The green-clothed girl pointed at the tallest palace nearby and said, So, Senior Marshal brother, you should wait. The sacred palace? The white-cloaked young man was shocked. Didn't Marshal Ancestor Huang say that it is forbidden to enter the sacred palace? Did something big happen? On the 7th floor of the sacred palace, 3 people were sitting cross-legged on prayer mats. Among them, Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia looked anxious as they looked at the handsome, yellow-clothed young man. However, this handsome young man had white hair at his temples. These days, Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia had been looking for their martial uncle. However, their martial uncle was in seclusion and had only come out today. Martial uncle, did you make a breakthrough this time? Although Yu Tonghai was anxious, he still asked. The heavenly book of the 9 cauldrons is broad and profound. The yellow-clothed young man opened his eyes and said with a smile, However, because it is broad and profound, it is extremely difficult to transcend the restrictions of the heavenly book of the 9 cauldrons and reach the insightful emptiness realm. First, I will comprehend the heavenly book of the 9 cauldrons and then transcend. This time, I gain some enlightenment. Perhaps I will be able to reach the insightful emptiness realm next time. The yellow-clothed young man appeared very calm. At his level, it was already not bad if he could gain enlightenment in 1 session of seclusion. Why did you come this time? The yellow-clothed young man looked at the 2 of them. Lu Xia, who was at the side, said, Martial uncle, the last time we went to Hongtian City, we wanted to stop the Heavenly God Palace. However, Pei San, the sovereign of the Heavenly God Palace, was an insightful emptiness realm expert. Even Qin Shichi couldn't do anything to him. Therefore, we could only give up. We could only watch as the Heavenly God Palace destroyed Hongtian City. Oh, is Pei San really that powerful? The yellow-clothed young man nodded slightly. He did the right thing. Martial uncle, Yu Tonghai, who was at the side, hastily said, However, according to our plan, the 2 sets of godly armor that Yu Shijin carried should have fallen into our hands. However, unexpectedly, the 6-eared earth-drilling mouse was injured by Pei San's flying dagger. Jing Yi rode his demonic beast and chased after the 6-eared earth-drilling mouse underground. The 2 sets of godly armor were taken by Jing Yi. At that time, we tried to stop Jing Yi, but he said that he didn't get the godly armor. The Hong Tian godly armor was taken by him? The yellow-clothed young man frowned. Yes, Yu Tonghai's eyes were sharp. Martial uncle, according to our information, someone once saw Jing Yi wearing a blood-colored battle armor and taking his wife, Li Jun, away. That blood-red armor was the Hong Tian godly armor. According to our estimations, he should have given the other godly armor to the Heavenly God Palace. How hateful! This bastard actually dared to quibble in front of me and Senior Brother Lu. Oomph. The yellow-clothed youth's gaze turned cold, and a faint killing intent appeared in his eyes. This Jing is really daring. Martial Uncle Yutong Hai was just about to speak. However, Jing he has a close relationship with the heavenly god palace, the yellow-clothed youth said with a frown. Don't be anxious. The more arrogant the heavenly god palace is, the faster it will be destroyed. It won't be too late to deal with Jing after the heavenly god palace is destroyed. Yutong Hai and Lu Xia looked at each other. As expected, their Uncle Master was still the same. He wouldn't do anything that he wasn't confident in. Chapter 1. Last night, Tomato watched TV. Tomato slacked off for once. I waited until today to write the 6th chapter. Today's update might be slightly late, but Tomato will definitely finish 6 chapters. Chapter 5:10. During the latter half of the night, the 6-legged blade-like Qi was flying in the sky above Qingzhou. The night wind was chilly. We're here. Tung Qingshan held Li Jun in his arms as he looked down at the boundless land below. Li Jun let out a roar. Upon hearing the roar, the 6-legged blade-like Qi immediately dived down. Like a bolt of lightning, it descended upon the headquarters of the Snowy Lotus Cult in Huyue, County of Qingzhou. In Li Jun's residence in the headquarters of the Snowy Lotus Cult. Whoosh. The sudden appearance of Tung Qingshan, Li Jun, and the 6-legged blade-like Qi in the luxurious courtyard startled the bodyguards who were patrolling at night. Who is it? The bodyguard with lanterns immediately approached. Li Jun frowned and said softly, "It's me." The bodyguards who approached saw that the newcomers were the substitute high priestess, her husband, and a terrifying demonic beast. The bodyguards hastily knelt on one knee and saluted. "Your Highness, call Hua Ruo over," Li Jun ordered. Hua Ruo was Li Jun's assistant. Yes. 2 of the bodyguards immediately ran away, and the rest of the bodyguards also immediately left, continuing to patrol around the courtyard. Qingshan. Li Jun looked at Tung Qingshan in confusion. Tung Qingshan frowned and shook his head as he said, "In this headquarters, only your teacher, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus Cult, and the godly Thunderbolt Hawk are here. There are no other Emptiness Realm experts, let alone Pei San." The instant he descended, the domain that covered an area of 34 li allowed him to understand the headquarters clearly. Then what should we do? Li Jun was stunned. This time, Tung Qingshan had come specifically to find Pei San. Don't worry. Take a look at the information first. You should know what is going on. Tung Qingshan knew very well that the Gui Yuan sect had only found some clues. If he wanted to know the real plan of the Heavenly God Palace, the Snowy Lotus Cult would naturally know everything. Only by knowing the real plan could he decide how to persuade Pei San. In just a short while, a valiant and formidable-looking lady wearing a silver robe with a purple ribbon tied around her waist quickly ran over. Seeing that the door to the study room was open and that there were lights inside, she hurriedly entered the study room. When she saw Li Jun and Tung Qingshan, she hurriedly bowed respectfully and greeted, "Your Highness, Lord." Hua Ruo. Li Jun, who was sitting in front of the study table, asked, "Did anything major happen in the church during my absence?" "The church seems to have mobilized the Blood Lotus Army," Hua Ruo replied respectfully. At the same time, she frowned slightly. "It seems that they have dispatched some troops. As for the details, I don't know. Your Highness knows that I have no right to read the secret letters." Li Jun took out a purple token from her waist and threw it to Hua Ruo. She instructed, "Hua Ruo, take my token and go to the treasury. Quickly bring me all the original copies of the secret letters from the past month. I want to read them." "Yes, Your Highness." Hua Ruo held the token in her hand and left respectfully for the treasury. In another luxurious courtyard in the main altar of the Snowy Lotus Cult, the high leader of the Snowy Lotus Cult, Pei Shiulian, and the godly Thunderbolt Hawk were staying there. Uncle Chun. It was still late at night, but Pei Shiulian was sitting beside the godly Thunderbolt Hawk. Puzzled, she asked, "Uncle Chun, did someone come?" She was sleeping just now, but the cries of the godly Thunderbolt Hawk rang in her ears. Pei Shiulian knew that the godly Thunderbolt Hawk, who was like a brother to her father, would only disturb her sleep under special circumstances. After a short while, bang, 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 someone knocked on the door. "Come in," Pei Shiwelian said. A middle-aged woman walked in and hastily bowed respectfully. Reporting to the High Leader, "The Saintess has returned. I thought little June had forgotten that she is the substitute High Leader of the Snowy Lotus cult." Pei Shiwelian was both happy and angry as she said, "She has been spending all her time with her man and has almost forgotten about her teacher. High Leader, the Saintess has just ordered her subordinate, Hua Ruo, to go to the treasury and retrieve all the secret letters from the past month." The middle-aged woman said in a low voice, "Just now, foreign dignitary Hua and the pitch-black demonic beast with blood-red eyes returned with the Saintess." "Hua?" A cold smile appeared on Pei Shiwelian's face as she thought to herself, "This fellow is actually willing to send his wife here. After retrieving the secret letters from the past month, little June wants to continue helping me manage the Snowy Lotus cult. No, even if she wanted to manage the Snowy Lotus cult, she didn't have to rush back in the middle of the night. Something must have happened for her to be in such a rush. Is it because father is preparing to attack Yangzhou?" Various thoughts flashed through Pei Shiwelian's mind. She glanced at the middle-aged woman and said, "You can leave first." "Yes, High Leader." After the middle-aged woman left, Pei Shiwelian leaped onto the back of the godly Thunderbolt Hawk and pointed in the direction of Li Jun's residence. In Li Jun's study room, under the flickering candlelight, Tung Qingshan and Li Jun were reading the secret letters from the past month. "I see." Tung Qingshan looked at the secret letters in his hand and thought to himself, "I was wondering why so many soldiers died when the Heavenly God Palace wanted to destroy Hong Tian City. As it turns out, they couldn't bear to part with the most elite immortal guards of the Great Prairie. The information Zhuge Yuanhong obtained was too little. However, the secret letters in front of them explained everything clearly." "What?" Li Jun exclaimed in surprise when she flipped through a piece of paper. "What's wrong?" Tung Qingshan moved closer and looked at the piece of paper in Li Jun's hand. "Energy destroyer? 12,000 energy destroyers? Little Jun, the person who came to look for us last time was the commander of the energy destroyer, Chao Yan. What exactly is the energy destroyer?" "Qingshan, the energy destroyer is an army under the direct command of the Heavenly God Palace. It is also the most elite army in the entire Heavenly God Palace. Those who can become an energy destroyer are at least first-rated warriors. Originally, there weren't many energy destroyer soldiers. As far as I know, there were only 3,000 to 4,000 of them. Why is it now? First-rated warriors?" Tung Qingshan knew very well how terrifying first-rated warriors were. A first-rated warrior could leap a distance of 10 zhang. As long as they inserted some daggers or arrows into the sturdy city walls, they could use them as leverage. A first-rated warrior could leap into the city with 2 continuous leaps. The tall city walls were useless in the eyes of first-rated warriors. Normally, a few hundred first-rated warriors could easily break through the city walls with a single charge. When Tung Qingshan had given the 2 cauldrons of the elixir of the North Sea to his teacher, Zhuge Yuanhong, in the Great Yin Mountain, Zhuge Yuanhong had been astonished. With these 2 cauldrons of the elixir of the North Sea, an army of over 10,000 first-rated warriors will be able to sweep through the entire Yangzhou. There weren't many before, but now there are more? Tung Qingshan thought of something and said, "Little Jun, the Beast King must have obtained the elixir of the North Sea during the battle at the Great Yin Mountain." "The elixir of the North Sea?" Tung Qingshan looked at these secret letters and frowned as he said, 100,000 immortal guards and 40,000 Snowy Lotus guards. Just these 140,000 elite soldiers are comparable to an army of over 1 million soldiers. In addition, there are 12,000 elite energy destroyers. This is even more terrifying than an army of over 1 million soldiers. These 152,000 soldiers are more than enough to sweep through Yangzhou. Moreover, the Snowy Lotus cult has been training 800,000 soldiers. No wonder the Heavenly God Palace dares to do this. Tung Qingshan felt a chill in his heart. If such an army were to charge, Yangzhou wouldn't be able to withstand it. Unless the soldiers of the Gui Yuan sect, the Long Gang Guards, were given the fiery gilt steel battle armor. If the first-rated warriors were equipped with the fiery gilt steel battle armor, they would be able to form a cavalry of the innate realm. Only then would they be able to block and even defeat the energy destroyers. After all, there was a huge difference in the level of their battle armors. I could kill you with a strike of my sword with all my strength, but you couldn't even pierce through my armor with all your strength. How could they fight? However, it wasn't time to reveal the fiery gilt steel battle armor yet. Tung Qingshan turned his head. What's wrong? Li Jun was shocked. Your teacher is here. Tung Qingshan put down the secret letters and looked at the courtyard outside. Li Jun immediately walked to the study table and welcomed her teacher, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. Whoosh! The godly Thunderbolt Hawk and the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult appeared in the courtyard at the same time. Hey! The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult walked over with a smile. Foreign dignitary hoo-ha, didn't you say that little June was unwell and didn't want little June to interfere with the affairs of the cult? Why did you come here in the middle of the night to read the secret letters of the past month? I am confused. Foreign dignitary hoo-ha, don't you care about little June's health? The words of the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult were filled with sarcasm. High priestess, Tung Qingshan said with a faint smile, I indeed have an important matter to attend to. That's why I came here in a hurry. Oh, what matter can make foreign dignitary Hua say it's an important matter? The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult asked with a surprised expression. Tell me, let me see if I can help you. Tung Qingshan didn't beat around the bush as he asked. High priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, where is the sovereign now? I have an important matter to discuss with him. My father is busy now and doesn't have time to meet you. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult immediately rejected Tung Qingshan's request. Teacher, Li Jun called out in a low voice. Humph, the high priestess scolded. Child, you are becoming more and more disobedient. A married disciple is like spilled water, Li Jun giggled. Hearing this, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult's expression became slightly better. Then, Li Jun continued in a low voice. Teacher, Hoo-ha really has an important matter to discuss with the sovereign. Teacher, please help. Tell him where Sovereign Hoo-ha is. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult's expression darkened as anger surged in her heart. Ever since she was young, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult had never been mistreated. She loved Li Jun very much. However, it was obvious that Li Jun was standing on Tung Qingshan's side. Actually, as the saying goes, if you marry a chicken, follow the chicken. Li Jun's actions were very normal. However, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult was not an ordinary person. She was the daughter of the sovereign of the heavenly god palace. She had never been mistreated since she was born. Ever since she first met Tung Qingshan, she felt uncomfortable. Especially when Tung Qingshan took away the Hong Tian godly armor. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult hated Tung Qingshan even more. Now that her disciple was helping Tung Qingshan, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult had a feeling that her precious disciple had been snatched away by Tung Qingshan. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult swung her sleeves and humphed angrily. Little June, you are becoming more and more disobedient. You only want to help Hoo-ha. Hoo-ha. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult stared coldly at Tung Qingshan. She gave off an air of superiority as she said, You came here in the middle of the night. Even if you don't tell me, I know. You must be investigating about the Heavenly God Palace's attack on Yangzhou. To tell you the truth, the Heavenly God Palace is going to attack Yangzhou. Moreover, it will be very soon. The attack on Yangzhou was arranged by me, the great monk Su Mengta, and a few others. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult said coldly, I have told you everything. In the future, if you want to know anything, just ask. Don't always rely on little June to investigate the secrets of the Heavenly God Palace. Chapter 511. Sneaky? Tung Qingshan's facial expression darkened when he heard this. If it were the sovereign of the Snowy Lotus cult, Li Chao, the king of beasts, and the others, they would probably just smile and let the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult go berserk. Li Chao and the others knew the high priestess's rude and unreasonable temper. However, they were close to the high priestess and grew up together. They were like biological siblings. Therefore, they could pretend not to hear anything. However, Tung Qingshan and the high priestess were not close enough for them to mock and scold each other. "Teacher," Li Jun said hastily. "Little Jun, shut up." The high priestess raised her chin and glanced at Tung Qingshan. "Hoo-ha, you must remember that you are only the foreign dignitary of the Heavenly God Palace. You are not a member of the Heavenly God Palace. You are not qualified to read the information. High priestess, I will not disturb you any longer." Tung Qingshan suppressed his anger and cupped his hands. He turned around and was about to leave with little Jun. "Don't be in such a hurry to leave." The high priestess smiled victoriously. "Hoo-ha, I'm just saying a few words to you as little Jun's teacher. You are also an outstanding person. Don't do such sneaky things. You are embarrassing yourself." Previously, she said that little Jun was unwell and didn't want her to be in charge. Now, she is asking her to look for information. Seriously, I still don't see anything wrong with little Jun's body. Tung Qingshan turned to look at the high priestess and humphed coldly. "High priestess, you are the daughter of the sovereign and Li Jun's teacher. I respect you." Tung Qingshan's eyes were cold. "However, you are right. I am not a member of the Heavenly God Palace. I'm a foreign dignitary. So, don't order me around. I'm not your servant. Even in front of the sovereign, I am still a foreign dignitary." Tung Qingshan's eyes were fierce. The high priestess was stunned. "You, who dared to talk back to her all these years? As for the information, wasn't it the Heavenly God Palace who appointed little Jun as the high priestess? The acting sect master naturally has the right to read the information. I'm her husband. Is it wrong for her to tell me?" Tung Qingshan knew very well that when the Heavenly God Palace appointed Li Jun as the acting sect leader, they wanted to tie him to the Heavenly God Palace. The high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult wanted to say something, but Tung Qingshan was standing on the side of reason. She was so angry that she didn't know how to refute. Also, Tung Qingshan said coldly, "It's true that little Jun's body needs to be nursed back to health. She's pregnant now. That's why I asked her to temporarily leave the Snowy Lotus cult alone." Since little Jun interferes with the affairs of the Snowy Lotus cult and knows the information about the Snowy Lotus cult, she told me about it and made you so unhappy. There was no other way. Little Jun was my wife, and I was her man. Of course, she had to tell me. In order not to leak the information about the Heavenly God Palace and not to put little Jun in a difficult position from today onwards, little Jun will not be the acting sect master. Tung Qingshan cupped his hands and said, "High priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, that's all I have to say. I won't trouble you to look for the sovereign. Farewell." With this, Tung Qingshan grabbed Li Jun, who was about to say something, and leaped onto the six-legged blade-like Qi. "Let's go." Tung Qingshan pointed to the east. Roar! The six-legged blade-like Qi roared and soared into the sky. This hoo-ha! This hoo-ha! The high priestess was so angry that her face turned red. Her chest heaved up and down as she panted. This fellow is too. For so many years, no one had dared to speak to her like this. Pregnant? You said little Jun is pregnant? I didn't see little Jun's belly getting bigger. Why didn't you find a better reason to lie? The high priestess was so angry that she stood rooted to the ground for a long time. Only when her anger gradually dissipated did she regain her senses. The high priestess raised her head and looked to the east. He went to the east? Humph. It seems like he is not stupid. He knew where to look for my father. However, if you want to see my father, I will make it so that you can't. How dare an idle emptiness realm expert act so arrogantly in front of me? The high priestess was so angry that she gnashed her teeth. After following her father for so long, her eyes were naturally sharp. Indeed, The high priestess didn't care about an emptiness realm expert. At this moment, she didn't realize that she was being arrogant. Uncle Chun, let's go. The high priestess leaped onto the godly thunderbolt hawk and pointed to the east. Screech! The godly thunderbolt hawk screeched and flew toward the east. High up in the sky, the six-legged blade-like chi was flying in the sky. A gale was howling around it. Tung Qing Shan and Li Jun were leaning on the six-legged blade-like chi. Little Jun, I won't make things difficult for you. If worst comes to worst, I will try my best to avoid meeting your teacher. Isn't that fine? Tung Qing Shan smiled as he held Li Jun's hand and said, However, to be honest, your teacher doesn't like me. I don't like her either. Your teacher is very old. However, why do I feel like she doesn't know how to be a human? It seems like she has never experienced the fickleness of human nature. Teacher is the daughter of the sovereign. Naturally, she is superior and has never suffered any grievances, Li Jun guessed. Tung Qing Shan felt helpless. Although he had only interacted with the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult a few times, he could easily tell that the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult wasn't a shrewd person. She liked the people she liked, such as Li Jun. However, she would reprimand the people she liked whenever she wanted. She was completely self-centered. She would show her dissatisfaction on the surface. She would also speak ruthlessly. Although the previous embarrassment had made Tung Qing Shan angry, he understood that this kind of person who showed her anger, affection, and dissatisfaction on the surface was not a threat. It's better for little Jun to have a teacher like this than a teacher who is full of schemes. Tung Qing Shan laughed self-mockingly. It's much better for little Jun to have a teacher like this than to have a teacher who is full of schemes. Tung Qing Shan laughed mockingly at himself. Little Jun, it's right in front, Tung Qing Shan said. Will the sovereign be there? Li Jun asked uncertainly. I'm not sure. Tung Qing Shan shook his head and said, However, according to the information I read, the three most important armies, the Blood Lotus Army, the Immortal Guards, and the Energy Destroyers, are gathered here. Therefore, even if Pei San, the Sovereign of Heaven, isn't here, the God of Heaven, Su Mengta, and the others are here. At least, Su Mengta and the others aren't as good at fighting as the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. Tung Qing Shan hadn't been able to find out where Pei San was from the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. With a thought, Tung Qing Shan came here. This was a huge, heavily guarded military camp. The Immortal Guards, the Blood Lotus Army, and the Energy Destroyers were all stationed here. When Tung Qing Shan and Li Jun dived down on the back of the six-legged blade-like chi, the sky had already begun to brighten. In the east, the sky was turning white. Whoosh! Tung Qing Shan and Li Jun landed in an elegant courtyard. Haha, Brother Hua, what brings you here? Pei Hao, who was dressed in a white cloak, walked out with a smile. Compared to his brother, Pei San, Pei Hao was a little less arrogant. He was a little more sincere. Brother Pei Hao. Tung Qing Shan smiled and cupped his hands. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two beams of flowing light appeared in the courtyard, as though they had teleported and transformed into two people. They were the monk Su Mengta, who wore a loose yellow monk robe, and the king of beasts, Wu Ho, who wore an azure robe and a godly armor on the inside. As soon as the two appeared, they smiled and cupped their hands towards Tung Qing Shan. Brother Hua, Su Mengta, Brother Wu Ho. Tung Qing Shan smiled and cupped his hands. Ha! Congratulations, Hu Ha. Wu Ho looked at Li Jun and said, It seems that you are going to be a father. Currently, the fetus in Li Jun's womb already had a heartbeat and pulse. It also had signs of life. Although it was very weak, everyone present was an emptiness realm expert. Of course, they could sense it. Brother Hu Ha, this is a joyous occasion. Pei Hao laughed as well. The monk also smiled and squinted his eyes. It's precisely because little Jun is pregnant that I've been accompanying her during this period of time. However, I have an important matter to attend to this time. Tung Qing Shan cupped his hands and said, The three of you, I would like to ask where the sovereign is now. I have an important matter to discuss with him. The sovereign. The monks Su Mengta and Wu Ho glanced at each other, and simultaneously stared at Pei Hao. Pei Hao smiled and said, "Hua, my third brother is currently cultivating in a secret place in Yuzhou. This is because we have to wait for the 800,000 soldiers to gather before we attack Yangzhou. Therefore, it will take about half a month. Moreover, the attack has just begun, so third brother doesn't need to show up. Only when the attack reaches a later stage will third brother need to show up." Pei Hao smiled and said, "Therefore, third brother is taking this opportunity to go into closed-door cultivation for a month. When third brother is in closed-door cultivation, no one is allowed to disturb him. Hua, it will be troublesome for you to meet the sovereign. Closed-door cultivation?" Tung Qingshan froze and felt slightly helpless. He knew that the emptiness realm experts cultivated almost every day. Even when his wife, little June, was pregnant, other than taking care of little June, Tung Qingshan only practiced his fist art. This was deeply ingrained in their bones. As for Pei San, he was an insightful emptiness realm expert. Naturally, he desired to reach the highest realm, the omnipotent realm. Throughout the history of the land of the 9 prefectures, there were many insightful emptiness realm experts. Maybe the insightful emptiness realm experts were famous during a certain period of several hundred years. However, after several thousand years, the later generations would only praise them. The people admired the omnipotent experts the most. The 4 omnipotent experts, Emperor Yu, Heavenly Emperor Qinling, Li Tai Bai, and martial ancestor Shiga. Which one of their names wasn't as dazzling as the sun? Which insightful emptiness realm expert didn't want to break through and reach the omnipotent realm? Payson will go into closed-door cultivation for a month. Tung Qingshan frowned. He could understand. If it were him, he wouldn't waste time either. However, he was in a hurry to see Pei San. The order to attack Yangzhou was given by Pei San. Even if he talked to the king of beasts, Pei Hao, and the others, the king of beasts and the others wouldn't be able to make the decision. He had to find Pei San. "May I know where the sovereign is now?" Tung Qingshan stared at Pei Hao. "This." Pei Hao hesitated. Suddenly, Pei Hao, the king of beasts Wuho, the god of heaven Sumengta, and Tung Qingshan all looked up at the sky. A bolt of lightning flashed and landed in the courtyard. The enormous godly thunderbolt hawk occupied a corner of the courtyard. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult leaped down gracefully. "I knew you would be here." The high priestess glanced at Tung Qingshan and ran to Pei Hao's side. "Fifth uncle, this Huho want to see father, right?" the high priestess asked. Pei Hao nodded. The high priestess continued, "Father is now in closed-door cultivation. You all know that no one is allowed to disturb father when he is in closed-door cultivation. Therefore, none of you are allowed to tell Hua." As the high priestess spoke, she stared at the god of heaven Sumengta and the king of beasts Wuho. The 2 emptiness realm experts exchanged glances and smiled helplessly. "High priestess," Tung Qingshan said with a frown. "Umph." When the high priestess saw Tung Qingshan's embarrassed expression, she couldn't help but feel pleased. "It's useless to call me high priestess. You just said that Li Jun is pregnant. Do you think I'm so gullible?" As the high priestess spoke, she intentionally glanced at Li Jun's abdomen. Pei Hao, who was at the side, pulled the high priestess. Fifth uncle?" The high priestess turned her head in confusion. Pei Hao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He whispered, "Xuelian, Li Jun is really pregnant. We can all sense the weak aura of life in her abdomen." End of Chapter 3. Continue writing Chapter 4. Chapter 5:12. Is she really pregnant? When the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult heard this, she froze. She couldn't help but touch her eyelids, pretending to rub sand from her eyes. Pei Hao, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but snicker inwardly. Whenever his niece was embarrassed, she would rub her eyes and touch her eyelids. At this moment, the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult was indeed embarrassed. The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult is really... Tung Qingshan laughed inwardly. However, The high priestess of the snowy lotus cult reacted quickly. After rubbing her eyes, she looked at Li Jun with a surprised expression and scolded jokingly. Little Jun, you are pregnant. How could you not tell your teacher about such an important matter? Do you still see me as your master? Master, Li Jun was a little embarrassed. Previously, when the high priestess of the snowy lotus cult reprimanded Tung Qingshan at the main altar of the snowy lotus cult, Tung Qingshan responded with a few words. Then, he pulled Li Jun along and left. Where was the time? Where was the right time for Li Jun to say, I'm pregnant? Since that's the case, little Jun, you are pregnant. Nurturing the fetus is the most important thing. I agree to the matter of you not being the current sect master for the time being. However, after your child is born, you will still be the substitute High Lord of the Snowy Lotus cult. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult glanced at Tung Qingshan and said, whether my disciple can be the current High Priestess or not depends on her husband. Tung Qingshan just smiled. He would not go so far as to quarrel with the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult. Brother Pei Hao. Tung Qingshan looked at Pei Hao. I have something important to discuss with the Palace Lord. Please tell me where he is. My father is in closed-door cultivation. Why do you want to see him? The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult asked with a frown. Of course it's something important. Tung Qingshan didn't want to talk to these people. It would be a waste of time. Then you can't meet him. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult also cheered excitedly with Tung Qingshan. My father is in closed-door cultivation. If my father was at a critical moment of enlightenment and was interrupted by you, then he would have died. Then what should we do? Are you able to compensate for my father's loss? Hearing the High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, Pei Hao hesitated. Indeed, if he was interrupted at the critical juncture of enlightenment, it would be troublesome. Tung Qingshan's expression darkened. He didn't bother to persuade her anymore and said directly, High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, you should know that your father owes me a favor. You still owe me a big reward. The High Priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, Pei Hao, and the others were stunned. They all knew about this. Right now, I want your father to return the favor. Tung Qingshan said coldly. Why? You won't let your father return the favor, right? Favors were the hardest to repay. Now that Tung Qingshan had pointed out that he wanted Pei San to repay the favor, everyone present was of high status. Naturally, they wouldn't go back on their word. For a moment, Pei Hao, the king of beasts Wu Ho, and the god of heaven Su Mengta looked at each other. After that, Pei Hao smiled and said, since Brother Hua has something important to ask the sovereign for, that's fine too. Wu Ho, follow Brother Hua to see your teacher. The king of beasts, Wu Ho, walked over with a smile and said, Hua, please. Tung Qingshan smiled and nodded. Little Jun, let's go. Tung Qingshan and Li Jun mounted the six-legged blade-like Qi, while the king of beasts, Wu Ho, sat cross-legged on the front of the six-legged blade-like Qi's back. The three of them were indeed a little crowded on the back of the blade mantis. Fortunately, Tung Qingshan and Li Jun were husband and wife, and the two of them snuggled together. Roar! The six-legged blade-like Qi let out a deep roar and immediately soared into the sky, flying towards the north. Pei Hao raised his head and watched as the six-legged blade-like Qi and the god of heaven, Su Mengta, left. Only Pei Hao, the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult, and the godly Thunderbolt Hawk were left in the courtyard. Xuelian, what happened to you this time? When there was no one around, Pei Hao frowned and reprimanded. It's not like you don't know the rules. Why did you forget yourself this time? Even though Pei Xuelian had a rude and unreasonable temper, she was still the leader of a sect. After so many years, she should know the rules of the sect. Fifth uncle. Pei Xuelian snorted. Lost my composure? Do I still need to be nice to this Hua? Back then, my father tried everything he could to make Hua join the heavenly god palace. However, Hua refused in every way possible. Pei Xuelian sneered and said, Then, I made little Jun the substitute high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult to rope Hua in. After that, I still treated Hua with a smile. But a cold glint flashed in Pei Xuelian's eyes as she said, However, Hoo-ha prevented the six-legged blade-like Chi from using its full strength outside Hong Tian City. Otherwise, eldest martial brother wouldn't have lost an arm. Indeed, when Pei San and the godly Thunderbolt Hawk tried everything they could to stop Hoo-ha, the six-legged blade-like Chi didn't use its sharp thorns. In the eyes of the six-legged blade-like Chi, its only friends were Tung Qing-shan and Li Jun. Moreover, with its intelligence, it knew that the people of the Heavenly God Palace and Tung Qing-shan were not on the same side. Therefore, although it helped, it didn't use its full strength. Even if it used its full strength, the sharp thorns wouldn't have been able to pierce through the Hong Tian godly armor on Yu Shijin, Pei Hao argued. No matter what, the six-legged blade-like Chi didn't use its full strength. Pei Shiwilian sneered and said, I won't vent my anger on it just because of this. However, when Yu Shijin was escaping, my father severely injured the six-eared earth-drilling mouse. At that time, my father summoned the six-legged blade-like Chi to help, but the six-legged blade-like Chi flew towards Hoo-ha. Pei Shiwilian sneered and said, This Hoo-ha is extremely selfish. From the beginning to the end, he didn't treat himself as a member of the Heavenly God Palace. Even if he obtained the 2 sets of godly armor and gave one to my father, the other set he left behind is the Hong Tian godly armor. This is second only to the paramount battle armor. Pei Shiwilian said disdainfully. Ever since then, I knew that Hoo-ha had drawn a clear line between him and the Heavenly God Palace. He gave him a set of godly armor and promised to thank him generously. I can't accept this on behalf of my father. Pei Hao froze. Fifth uncle. Deep down, he never thought of joining the Heavenly God Palace. Moreover, the Heavenly God Palace won't be able to benefit from him. Do I still need to smile at such a person? So what if I scold him? If I don't scold him, he won't join the Heavenly God Palace. If I scold him, would he dare to rebel? Pei Shiwilian sneered. Pei Hao sighed inwardly. His niece could see everything clearly. Once she was sure that Hoo-ha would never join the Heavenly God Palace, her attitude immediately changed. If you are in the same sect as me, I will protect you. If you're not in the same sect as me, I will step on you a few times. You are offending people. Your father said not to be enemies with Hoo-ha. Pei Hao shook his head and said, I really don't understand. Why is my father afraid of him? He hasn't even reached emptiness realm culmination, and he has a demonic beast? My father is someone who can command several prefectures with a single order. Why is there a need to talk nonsense with Hoo-ha? Hoo-ha's mind isn't with the Heavenly God Palace. Pei Shiwilian shook her head. Suddenly, Pei Shiwilian smiled and said, Fifth uncle, can you guess why he came to find my father? It should be related to the attack on Yangzhou, Pei Hao said. Yes. Pei Shiwilian smiled confidently and said, Hoo-ha has helped the Gui Yuan sect many times. According to my information, I heard that the Gui Yuan sect once helped Hoo-ha. I'm afraid that in Hoo-ha's heart, the Heavenly God Palace is not as important as the Gui Yuan sect. We're going to attack Yangzhou. He is probably worried about the Gui Yuan sect. That's why he came to beg my father. Pei Shiwilian sneered and said, Fifth uncle, why would such a person join the Heavenly God Palace? Even if he joined, he would be a spy. Pei Shiwilian was right. Tung Qing-shan didn't see himself as a member of the Heavenly God Palace. It would be easier to get along in the future if he drew a clear line. Otherwise, if the relationship between the two sides was unclear, Tung Qing-shan would control the entire Yangzhou and confront the Heavenly God Palace. Both sides would lose face. If he was a sinister person, if he joined the Heavenly God Palace and did well, the Heavenly God Palace wouldn't be wary of him. When he was fully fledged, he would immediately kick the Heavenly God Palace down and occupy Yangzhou. Of course, this would be much easier. However, Tung Qing-shan couldn't do this. He could only draw a clear line between the two sides. In the early morning of Yuzhou, the six-legged blade-like Qi was flying amidst the fog. Look, the high mountain ahead is called Songyang Mountain. It's the place where Teacher is cultivating in seclusion. The king of beasts, Wu Ho, pointed at a tall mountain that was obscured by the fog. As the six-legged blade-like Qi flew at high speed, Sanyang Mountain became bigger and bigger in its field of vision. Brotherly Chao is here as well? Tung Qingshan said in surprise. He could already sense the aura of the two emptiness realm experts in Sanyang Mountain. Yes. Wu Ho sighed and said, eldest martial brother lost an arm, and his sword art was affected. He accompanied teacher to cultivate in seclusion so that he could change his sword art and adapt to having only one arm. Before Wu Ho finished speaking, the six-legged blade-like Qi had already landed on the mountainside of Sanyang Mountain. Sanyang Mountain was surrounded by clouds and fog, and the scenery was beautiful. It was the beginning of autumn. Yangzhou in the south still had the heat of summer, but in Yuzhou in the north, it was already very cold in the morning. Frost could be seen on the grass and trees on the mountain. Tung Qingshan, Li Jun, the king of beasts Wu Ho, and the six-legged blade-like Qi walked towards the place where Pei San and Li Chao were cultivating in seclusion. Before they arrived, they could already sense the fierce sword aura. Many trees in the surroundings had already collapsed, the plants were broken, and the stems and leaves were flying everywhere. On empty ground on the mountainside, a one-armed man with black hair and white eyebrows was performing his sword art. His sword moves were not fast, nor was he imbued with true origin. However, his moves were so fierce that they seemed to be able to tear the heavens and earth apart. Sword auras appeared in the surrounding space. Phew! The one-armed man with black hair and white eyebrows took a deep breath and sheathed his sword. He walked towards the few people nearby and said with a smile, Brother Hoo-ha, why are you here? Oh, congratulations. Li Chao glanced at Li Jun in surprise and said, I didn't expect that Brother Hoo-ha would become a father after not seeing you for a few days. When this was mentioned, Tung Qingshan naturally felt happy. He glanced at Li Jun, who was beside him, with a smile. Brother Li Chao, I need to see the sovereign. The sovereign. Tung Qingshan stared at Li Chao. Teacher is cultivating in seclusion. This, Li Chao was slightly hesitant. Suddenly, Hoo-ha, you are about to become a father. Instead of waiting at home for your child to be born, you came to my place. Something big must have happened. Pei San, who was wearing a loose moon-white cloak, strode out of the dark cave and looked at Tung Qingshan with a smile on his face. End of Chapter 4. Tomato continues writing Chapter 5. 3 chapters a day, 6 chapters in 2 days. Tomato will definitely complete it. Chapter 5:13. Tung Qingshan asked Li Jun and the six-legged blade-like Qi to stay outside while he carried the splitting mountain axe and entered the cave with Pei San. After walking along the deep cave for a long time, they arrived at a quiet room. A faint light shone through the cracks in the wall. Sit. Pei San sat cross-legged in front of a low stone table. Tung Qingshan sat opposite Pei San. Speak. What's the matter? Pei San asked with a smile. Sovereign. Tung Qingshan frowned and said, I heard that you deployed the Immortal Guards, the Blood Lotus Army, and the Energy Slaughterers to attack Yangzhou. Is this true? Yes. Pei San nodded. Sovereign, these 3 elite armies are indeed powerful, especially the Energy Slaughterers. There are 12,000 first-rated warriors. This is a terrifying force. If I'm not mistaken, the Energy Slaughterers were built with the help of the elixir of the North Sea. Tung Qingshan smiled and said, during the battle in the Great Yin Mountain, many of the elixir of the North Sea were born. Although it was a secret that the Supreme Sects fought over the elixir of the North Sea, it was not a secret to the Emptiness Realm experts. Yes. Pei San nodded. Sovereign, the Energy Slaughterers are very powerful. I have to give the Heavenly God Palace a thumbs up. Tung Qingshan's words caused a smile to appear on Pei San's face. Everyone liked to listen to flattery. However, Tung Qingshan changed the topic and said, However, according to what I know, you are not the only one who obtained the elixir of the North Sea. Pei San frowned. Sovereign, you destroyed Xiaoyao Palace of Qingzhou and Hongtian City of Yuzhou. Now, you're going to attack Yangzhou. What do you think the people of the world will think? First of all, Qinghu Island of Yangzhou will fight to the death, not to mention the other sections. The Shooting Sun God Mountain probably knows that if Qinghu Island is destroyed, the Shooting Sun God Mountain will be destroyed as well. Therefore, the Shooting Sun God Mountain has 2 Emptiness Realm experts and 1 Emptiness Realm demonic beast. It is not strange at all for them to help the Blind Sword Master. Tung Shan said solemnly. Pei San smiled and nodded. Yes, Palace Master, you now have the Northern Great Prairie, the Serenity Province, and the Azure Province under your command, with close to 1 billion people under your rule. Emperor Yu's Hall, the Ing family, and the Mani Temple were already on guard. Palace Master destroyed Yangzhou, and his intention is to destroy Yinzhou. I'm afraid that the southernmost Mani Temple won't be able to hold back. In terms of military strength, back then, there were a few families that obtained the elixir of the North Sea. They could also create an army of powerful first-rated warriors. With the help of Emperor Yu's Hall, Mani Temple, and the other forces, the Shooting Sun God Mountain and Qinghu Island. So, it is not strange for an army of more than 10,000 first-rated warriors to appear. In terms of Emptiness Realm experts, the Shooting Sun God Mountain and Qinghu Island have 4. It would be fine if Mani Temple and Emperor Yu's Hall tolerated it. However, if they couldn't bear it and exploded, then it would probably not just be 4 Emptiness Realm experts. 7, 8, or even more than 10 Emptiness Realm experts. His troops are no less than yours, and he has the geographical advantage. If the Mani Temple and the others join in, I'm afraid. Tung Shan sighed and said, Sovereign, Brother Li Chao lost his arm last time. The enemy is only Hong Tian City. However, if we attack Yangzhou again, and the Mani Temple and the others explode, I'm afraid that the Heavenly God Palace will also lose Emptiness Realm experts. Sovereign, can you bear to do this? Li Chao's severed arm was indeed a thorn in Pei San's heart. Li Chao had been raised by Pei San since he was young, and he treated him like his own son. When Li Chao lost his arm, Pei San was furious. He had to admit, Tung Shan's words hit Pei San's weak spot. Sovereign, if you endure for 10 to 20 years. Tung Shan continued. Qingzhou, Yuzhou, and the Great Prairie have vast territories and large populations. After 10 to 20 years, they will have a solid foundation. It won't be difficult for the 3 prefectures to gather an army of 10 million. By then, the army of 10 million will march southwards. Who can stop them? Even a Mani Temple can't compare to the Heavenly God Palace in terms of territory and foundation. And after 10 to 20 years, if Sovereign has a breakthrough, by then, you will be even more powerful. You will be much more confident in leading an army to conquer the world. If you endure for 100 years, with the prosperity of the 3 prefectures, the Heavenly God Palace will have 2 or 3 more Emptiness Realm experts. By then, the Heavenly God Palace will be even more powerful than the Mani Temple. If we don't fight, we will have already won. Tung Shan smiled and said, Sovereign, think about it yourself. Do you want to fight until your head bleeds and your bones are broken? Or do you want to lose a few Emptiness Realm experts? Or do you want to endure and wait for your strength to stabilize and win a great victory? You can choose between the 2. Pei San frowned. Tung Shan's words were reasonable. However, Pei San's perspective was different from Tung Shan's. What he wanted to do was not what Tung Shan could think of. Ha ha hua. Pei San suddenly laughed. Sovereign, have you chosen? Tung Shan was calm. Pei San smiled as he looked at Tung Shan and said, Emptiness Realm experts spend most of their time in seclusion. They're not good at negotiating. However, I have observed that you, Huha, are very good at persuading and negotiating. I admit that my confidence was shaken by what you said. Tung Shan was shocked. This is not good. Huha, you are here to persuade me because of the Gui Yuan sect, right? I heard that you have a good relationship with the Gui Yuan sect. Pei San didn't answer and asked instead. Yes, the Gui Yuan sect helped me in the past, Tung Qingshan answered. Payson nodded and said, It's good to be grateful. Hua, to tell you the truth, I have been planning to attack Yangzhou for a long time. Naturally, it cannot be changed. Moreover, I am very confident in all kinds of situations. The smile on Paysan's face was something that Tung Qingshan couldn't see through. The Gui Yuan sect helped me. Tung Qingshan said in a deep voice, I don't want to see it destroyed. If I lead my army to the south and conquer Jiangning County, will you become my enemy? Paysan's eyes glistened as he looked at Tung Qingshan. Become his enemy? Tung Qingshan stared at Paysan and spat out a word. Yes. Good. Paysan smiled and nodded. That's a true man. You dared to fight against the heavenly god palace because of your kindness. However, no matter how much I admire you, it's useless. Paysan smiled and said, The heavenly god palace has been planning to invade Yangzhou for hundreds of years. We have been enduring for hundreds of years. Now, we're going to make a move to occupy several prefectures. We have been enduring for hundreds of years. How can we change because of your words? How can we change because of my admiration for you? Hua, you should leave. You can dismiss the members of the Gui Yuan sect and hide in preparation for a comeback. The expression on Tung Qingshan's face darkened. Sovereign, you owe me a favor. Tung Qingshan said in a deep voice. Yes. Paysan nodded. I will use this favor in hopes that you won't attack Yangzhou. Tung Qingshan stared at Paysan. Use this favor? You want me to not attack Yangzhou? Paysan was stunned. He smiled bitterly and said, It seems like I am trapped in a cocoon of my own making. Tung Qingshan held his breath as he stared at Paysan. Huh? Paysan couldn't help but laugh loudly. His laughter echoed in the quiet room and caused many crushed stones to roll down. Paysan suddenly stood up, and Tung Qingshan hastily stood up as well. Paysan picked up a pot of wine that was placed in the corner of the quiet room. He raised his head and drank a mouthful. Immediately after, he turned his head and stared at Tung Qingshan with eyes as sharp as lightning. Hua, you overestimate me. The favor I owe you is not as important as conquering Yangzhou. You can ask me to kill people for you. However, the favor I owe you is not enough for me to stop conquering Yangzhou. Then what about the promise you owe me? Tung Qingshan said in a deep voice. It's not enough. Paysan's hair suddenly fluttered as he stared coldly at Tung Qingshan. You still don't understand. Conquering a city and occupying a province was a great undertaking. What is a favor and a promise? Therefore, capturing Yangzhou is something I must do. Don't waste your time. Tung Qingshan was so angry that his face turned green. This Paysan, he was indeed an ambitious and ruthless person. Favor and promise? He could just say, the favor is not as important as conquering Yangzhou. If this kind of person encountered something that Tung Qingshan didn't want to do, he could just say, the favor is not worth it. The importance of the favor depended on Paysan's words. However, this favor and promise can be exchanged for a prefecture to ensure the inheritance of the Gui Yuan sect. What do you think? Paysan said with a smile. The favor and promise can be exchanged for a prefecture? Tung Qingshan hesitated for a moment before he looked at Paysan and said, Sovereign, it's a deal. Okay. Paysan nodded. Since it's like this, then, within the borders of Yangzhou, choose one of the two counties that's at the northernmost Chu County, or the southern Anman County that's near the desolate land. What? Tung Qingshan was stunned. Sovereign, I said Jiangning County. Let the Gui Yuan sect stay in Jiangning County. Huh? Jiangning County? Paysan laughed as he looked at Tung Qingshan and said, Hua, you are not an idiot. Don't you understand? Jiangning County is located in the middle of Yangzhou and is a prosperous place. Moreover, the Yuyang Grand Canal passes through it. How can I let other sects occupy such an important location? If you want to choose the northernmost Chu County or the southernmost Nanman County. A favor and a promise can only be worth one of these two counties. Paysan looked at Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan's expression turned cold. His heart also turned cold. What was the most important thing for a sect? It was the foundation. Take the heavenly god palace, for example. Although it had occupied Qingzhou and Yuzhou, It had not yet started operating. Its control was still very weak. It was the same for the Gui Yuan sect. The Gui Yuan sect had been in Jiangning for more than 1,000 years and was deeply rooted. Even a remote mountain village knew that the heavenly god of Jiangning was the Gui Yuan sect. This kind of cohesiveness could not be achieved in 10 or 20 years. 10 or 20 years could only be used to control the sect. However, it would take generations, hundreds, or even thousands of years to achieve what the people wanted. Abandon Jiangning County and go to the remote and unfamiliar Nanman County, or Chu County. Teacher said that it would be enough if the Gui Yuan sect could stay in Jiangning. I didn't expect Pei San to be so ruthless. Tung Shan said angrily. If worse comes to worst, let's fight. It took the heavenly god palace a few months to destroy Qingzhou and half a year to destroy Hongtian City. Destroying Yangzhou and Qinghu Island would probably take even more time. According to the agreement, the undying phoenix, Little Blue, should arrive in 1 or 2 months at the latest. Let's fight. Once Little Blue arrives, with Little Blue's speed, group attack ability, and the 6-legged blade-like chi, the heavenly god palace will cry. Tung Shan had no other choice. He could only gamble. He could gamble that the undying phoenix would arrive before the Gui Yuan sect was conquered. If worst comes to worst, I'll ride the 6-legged blade-like chi to Phoenix Island and invite them here. Tung Shan made a decision. Break. For the sake of the Gui Yuan sect, this was the only choice. Chapter 514. Tung Shan wasn't a wishy-washy person. Since he had already made up his mind to break with the heavenly god palace, he didn't hesitate any longer. Why? Have you made your choice? Pei San smiled as he looked at Tung Shan. Sovereign, the Gui Yuan sect will never agree to it. Tung Shan looked at Pei San and said angrily, I'm sure you know that the Gui Yuan sect has been operating in Jiangning County for over 1,000 years. How could it be willing to give it up? To a rich man who has lost his property and is about to starve to death. Even rotten steam buns are good. Pei San smiled and said, If it weren't for you, the Gui Yuan sect would have been destroyed. Now, I'm giving a way out. I'm letting it go to Nanman County or Chu County to develop again. Is the Gui Yuan sect still not satisfied? If so, it should be destroyed. Tung Shan's heart turned colder. However, on the surface, a hint of hesitation could be seen on his ugly face. In his previous life, Tung Shan had mastered the art of disguise. Pei San watched this scene with a smile. Sovereign, what you said makes sense. Having a territory is better than destroying the sect. Tung Shan shook his head and said, However, the Gui Yuan sect might not agree to it. I owe the Gui Yuan sect a great favor. Of course, I have to repay it. Sigh, my trip this time can be considered a failure. I have to go and ask the sovereign of the Gui Yuan sect. Let's see what will happen. If the Gui Yuan sect agrees to relocate, then there will be no need to kill. However, if he doesn't agree, then I can only repay his kindness and stand on the same side as the Gui Yuan sect. There was still a hint of anger in Tung Shan's voice. Sovereign, farewell. Tung Shan cupped his hands and left. Goodbye, Pei San said with a smile. Outside the cave, carrying the splitting mountain axe on his back, Tung Shan walked out. Li Chao and the king of beasts, Wu Ho, welcomed him with a smile. Tung Shan simply nodded his head and held Li Jun's hand, leaping onto the back of the 6-legged blade-like chi. Let's go. Tung Shan pointed to the south. Whoosh! The 6-legged blade-like chi soared into the sky and rapidly disappeared into the clouds on the horizon. High up in the sky, above the clouds, the sky was blue and clear. Tung Shan and Li Jun sat on the 6-legged blade-like chi, however. At this moment, Tung Shan frowned. Shan, what's wrong? Li Jun asked softly. Little Jun. Tung Shan raised his head and looked at Li Jun. Li Jun froze. Tung Shan smiled bitterly. At this moment, He felt that he owed Li Jun the most. In the heavenly god palace, Li Jun had a teacher in the language of beasts, Wu Ho. But now, Tung Qingshan's actions meant that Li Jun would break off all relations with the heavenly god palace, her teacher, and the others. What's wrong? Li Jun asked hastily. Little Jun, Tung Qingshan said in a deep voice, I talked to Pei San just now. However, Pei San is a determined person. He will never change his mind. Moreover, I asked him for a favor and a promise. He only agreed to give the Gui Yuan sect Chu County or Nanman County. How is this possible? Li Jun's eyes widened. Isn't this forcing Qingshan to, yes, I have no choice? Tung Qingshan's expression was unsightly. Pei San's decision cannot be changed. However, no matter what, I have to protect the Gui Yuan sect. Therefore, from today onwards, you are no longer the saintess of the Snowy Lotus cult. You have to break off relations with your teacher and the others. Tung Qingshan held Li Jun's hand. Li Jun bit her lips. She felt conflicted. Tung Qingshan looked at Li Jun silently. Qingshan. Li Jun held Tung Qingshan's hand and whispered, Ever since I left the god of Heaven Mountain and went to sea with you, I have made up my mind. I will follow you forever. If you marry a chicken, follow the chicken. Qingshan, I only hope that you won't kill my teacher or second martial uncle in the future. In the heavenly god palace, Li Jun owed Pei Shiwilian and Wu Ho the most. If the people of the heavenly god palace knew that Li Jun begged foreign dignitary Hu He not to kill Pei Shiwilian and Wu Ho, the heavenly god palace would think that it was a joke. However, Li Jun knew this was not a joke. This was because foreign dignitary Hu He's real identity was Tung Qingshan, a monstrous figure who had attained the emptiness realm at the age of 21. Don't worry. Tung Qingshan nodded slightly and embraced Li Jun. Phew. The six-legged blade-like Qi carried Tung Qingshan and Li Jun on its back and rapidly disappeared into the southern horizon. At the entrance of the cave in Sonyang Mountain, teacher, foreign dignitary Hu He doesn't seem to be in a good mood. Li Chao and the king of beasts, Wu Ho, came over. Of course he's not in a good mood. From today onwards, Hu He is no longer the foreign dignitary of the heavenly god palace. Li Chao and Wu Ho were shocked by Pei San's words. However, Pei San smiled and continued, Ah Chao, ah Ho, let's go. We're going to Qingzhou now. Teacher, you're not going to cultivate in seclusion? Li Chao was slightly surprised. Yes, let's go now. Pei San gave the order. Then, Pei San, Li Chao, and Wu Ho soared into the sky and headed towards Qingzhou. In the barracks of the Immortal Guards, the Blood Lotus Army, and the Energy Slaughter Guardians were stationed in Qingzhou. The sun had already risen high in the sky. A gray beam of light descended from the sky and landed in the courtyard where Pei Hao was. It was Pei San, Li Chao, and Wu Ho. In the courtyard, the god of heaven Su Mengte and the high priestess of the Snowy Lotus cult quickly arrived. I have a few things to say. Pei San scanned the crowd. Su Mengte, Pei Shiwilian, Pei Hao, Li Chao, and Wu Ho listened attentively. From today onwards, Hu He is no longer the foreign dignitary of the heavenly god palace. Pei San's words shocked Pei Shiwilian, Pei Hao, and the others. However, Pei San continued. This time, the heavenly god palace is attacking Yangzhou from the south. Hu He will definitely be on the side of the Gui Yuan sect. Therefore, Little Lien, Su Mengte, Pei San said solemnly, Father, Sovereign. Pei Shiwilian and Su Mengte listened respectfully. The Energy Slaughter Guardians, the Immortal Guards, and the Blood Lotus Army are stationed here and will not move for now. As for the 800,000 soldiers that are gathering in Qingzhou, from now on, stop the order to gather. At the same time, we have to pretend to be mysterious so that the 800,000 soldiers can be deployed normally. Su Mengte, you will assist Little Lien in this matter. You must do a good job. Father, don't worry. Qingzhou is currently reorganizing its defenses. I reckon that many sects have yet to discover that we are gathering 800,000 soldiers. Even if they suspect us and discover us, we will switch the 800,000 soldiers with the other troops. We will confuse the other sects, and they will not discover us, Pei Shuilian said confidently. After all, the gathering had just begun. If they had been gathering and traveling for half a month, they would not be able to conceal it even if they wanted to. Yes. Payson nodded and said, although the Blood Lotus Army, the Energy Slaughter Guardians, and the Immortal Guards are gathered here, there are only a few 100,000 soldiers. They will not attract the attention of the other sections. For now, from today onwards, the attack on Yangzhou will be suspended. We must let the people of the world think that we are doing a good job in Qingzhou and Yuzhou. Father, why are you? Pei Shuilian was puzzled. Don't worry about that. Pei-san frowned and said, also, from today onwards, the saintess of the Snowy Lotus cult will be deposed. Pei Shuilian froze. You mean Lil Jun? Yes. After deposing the saintess, Pei-san continued, the news will spread. Also, the 3 foreign dignitaries of the Heavenly God Palace will be reduced to 2 foreign dignitaries. Foreign dignitary Huha will break off relations with the Heavenly God Palace. Let some of the guards talk about it. The spies of the other sects will definitely find out. Everyone present nodded slightly. Huha. Payson thought to himself, do you think that I can't touch you because you have the undying phoenix behind you? That's good. I will stop attacking Yangzhou now. The news of you breaking off relations with the Heavenly God Palace and Li Jun being deposed will spread. The other sects will know about this soon. Emperor Yu's Hall will seek revenge for the smallest grievance. They were worried about the Heavenly God Palace, so they did not take revenge on you. However, you broke off relations with the Heavenly God Palace. Now, the Heavenly God Palace is not attacking Yangzhou. Emperor Yu's Hall will definitely kill you and take away the Hong Tian godly armor. So what if the Undying Phoenix comes? An emptiness realm demonic beast that doesn't understand the human language won't know the secret. Pei-san thought to himself coldly, since you have chosen to be my enemy, you will have to deal with the first wave of attacks. If you can't even deal with this, you won't be qualified to be my stepping stone. Tung Qingshan used a few moves to kill with a borrowed knife. Late at night on the second day, whoosh, a messenger pigeon from Qingzhou flew into Emperor Yu's Hall. Not long after midnight, someone immediately left Emperor Yu's Hall. He left Yu City and went to the Blind Bear Mountain Range outside Yu City. He found the emptiness realm experts of Emperor Yu's Hall and handed over the secret letter. In the distant north, above the vast and boundless North Sea, voila, the waves rippled, and on the surface of the sea that was faintly shimmering under the sunlight, there was a faint shadow of flowing light moving along the surface of the sea, quickly approaching. Phew! The flowing light stopped and transformed into a figure. It was a stocky elder wearing a snow-white fur coat and a felt hat. He carried a huge wolf-headed saber on his back. I didn't expect that I would leave Duanmu continent and travel south on the sea. I went to the land of the 9 prefectures where there are many emptiness realm experts. Leaving Duanmu continent this time not only improved my mental state, but it also helped me comprehend another Tao. Now, I am only 10% away from emptiness realm culmination. The stocky elder stepped on the surface of the sea but didn't sink. He looked to the south and said, according to Brother Qingshan, Duanmu continent and the land of the 9 prefectures are more than 100,000 li apart. I have only traveled less than half of the distance. There's an island in front. I will go and rest for a while before continuing. The sea was vast. To emptiness realm experts, traveling on the waves was as easy as walking on flat ground. However, traveling for a long time was extremely tiring. They needed a rest. As they approached the deserted island, the elder carrying the huge wolf-headed saber on his back revealed a surprised expression. This island actually has the powerful aura of the Undying Phoenix, Little Blue, by Qingshan's side. Beside her, there's also a powerful aura. Screech, a loud and clear sound pierced through the clouds on the deserted island. He discovered the Undying Phoenix, and the Undying Phoenix, Little Blue, discovered him as well. Whoosh! A streak of fiery light flew over from the deserted island and stopped before the elder. The fiery light surrounded the elder's body as it hovered in the air. "Huh, long time no see." The elder laughed and said, "Since you invited me, I will go and be your guest." Immediately, the elder followed the undying phoenix, Little Blue, into the Phoenix Island. 6 chapters completed. Yes, I have completed the 3 chapters from yesterday. Tomato said that except during the annual meeting, I will update 3 chapters every day from the day the outbreak started. Tomorrow, on the 11th, Tomato will prepare for the annual meeting. He will be very busy during this period. Tomato will only be able to write novels in the hotel every night. Therefore, from the 11th to the 15th of the annual meeting, Tomato would release 2 chapters a day. On the afternoon of the 16th, as soon as he got home, Tomato continued to explode. Everyone has seen Tomato's updates this month. Tomato guarantees one thing: at least more updates than Little Dick. I can guarantee one more thing. The following plot will be crazy and exciting. The curtains have been drawn and the climax has begun. So, brothers, let's get our monthly votes. The monthly votes supported Tomato, giving him more motivation. Monthly votes. Recommendation votes. I'll take all the tickets. Chapter 515. In Tung Chingshan's mansion in East City, Yangzhou was located in the south. Even though it was the beginning of autumn, the afternoon was still as hot as summer. However, Zhuge Yuanhong stood alone by the pond in the inner court. He had been standing there for several hours. I wonder if the heavens will allow the Gui Yuan sect to escape this calamity. Zhuge Yuanhong thought to himself. In the land of the 9 prefectures, every time an absolute hero rose, there would be a storm of blood. This time, the rise of the heavenly god palace could be considered as a shock and a calamity to the entire land of the 9 prefectures. It was unknown how many ancient sects would be destroyed in this calamity. Qingshan, Zhuge Yuanhong waited silently. Suddenly, whoosh, a beam of light with a strong gust of wind rushed into the training field of the inner court, stirring up a lot of dust. Zhuge Yuanhong turned his head and saw the couple, Tung Qingshan and Li Jun, who were riding on the 6-legged blade-like Qi. However, when Zhuge Yuanhong saw the expression of his proudest disciple, Tung Qingshan, he felt a knot in his heart. "Teacher." Tung Qingshan and Li Jun leaped off the blade-like Qi and walked over. "Come, sit here." Zhuge Yuanhong led Tung Qingshan to a table under a pavilion and sat down. "Qingshan, what did the sovereign of the heavenly god palace say when you went to the heavenly god palace?" Zhuge Yuanhong stared at Tung Qingshan. Tung Qingshan felt bitter. Of course, he knew what his teacher hoped for. Unfortunately, he had disappointed his teacher. Tung Qingshan took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Teacher, the heavenly god palace has been enduring for hundreds of years just for this day. I want to persuade Pei San. However, the sovereign of the heavenly god palace didn't listen to me. Didn't he owe you a favor and a promise of great gratitude?" Zhuge Yuanhong was prepared for this, but he still frowned. He said that a favor and a promise of great gratitude could only be equivalent to a prefecture. Moreover, it could only be the northernmost Shu County, or the southernmost Nanman County. Tung Qingshan frowned. "That is to say, if you agree, the Gui Yuan sect will have to leave Jiangning." "Who?" Zhuge Yuanhong stood up abruptly, his body trembling uncontrollably. "Master." Tung Qingshan was startled. He might have feelings for the Gui Yuan sect, but it was definitely not as deep as his master and the others. He valued the Gui Yuan sect because he valued his friends in the Gui Yuan sect, such as Zhuge Yuanhong, who had helped him before, his brother-in-law Zhuge Yun, Lady Qing, whom he felt indebted to, and the Black Armor Corps brothers who had fought side by side with him in the past. But Zhuge Yuanhong was different. The Zhuge family was an ancient family in the Gui Yuan sect. It had been passed down from generation to generation. The disciples of the Zhuge family had been entangled with the Gui Yuan sect for a long time. Zhuge Yuanhong had been trained since he was young, and now he was the sovereign of the Gui Yuan sect. It could be said that, for the sake of the Gui Yuan sect, he was willing to die. I am fine, Zhuge Yuanhong said in a deep voice, but his face was obviously pale. Qing Shan. Zhuge Yuanhong spoke again. Master. Tung Qing Shan listened carefully. What Payson meant was that if the Gui Yuan sect wants to stay in Jiangning County and protect this piece of land, there's only one way to fight, right? There's only one way to fight, right? Zhuge Yuanhong turned his head and stared at Tung Qing Shan. Tung Qing Shan hesitated for a while, but he still nodded and said, Yes. If we fight, how confident are we? Zhuge Yuanhong asked in a deep voice. It is not possible to defeat the Heavenly God Palace. Tung Qing Shan frowned and said, But I guess the undying phoenix, Little Blue, should have learned her mother's unique skill by now. She should come. Even if the war starts and Little Blue doesn't come, I will ride the blade-like Chi to the Phoenix Island. I will ask Little Blue and even her mother to come. With Little Blue here, it is impossible to defeat the Heavenly God Palace. However, I am 90% confident that we can protect the Gui Yuan sect. Tung Qing Shan was just being conservative. If her mother comes, it is possible to defeat the Heavenly God Palace. It will definitely not be a problem to protect the Gui Yuan sect. Tung Qing Shan spoke very forcefully. Zhuge Yuanhong's pale face showed a hint of relief. Reaching out his hand, Zhuge Yuanhong patted Tung Qing Shan's shoulder lightly and said in a deep voice, If I am 90% confident, what else can I ask for? In this case, Qing Shan, let's fight. Yes. Tung Qing Shan's heart was also filled with a flame filled with the desire to fight. This time, it is all thanks to you, Qing Shan. Zhuge Yuanhong looked at Tung Qing Shan. In this precarious time of bloodshed, many sects in the land of the 9 prefectures might be destroyed. However, at the same time, when the flames of war were incessant, it was also the time when true heroes rose and became famous. At this time, some sects would take this opportunity to rise. When the calamity came, some would be destroyed and some would become strong. It was all about people. In this calamity, the Gui Yuan sect had Tung Qing Shan. From this day onwards, the entire Gui Yuan sect began to prepare in secret. As an ancient sect with 1,000 years of history, as a sect located in the center of Yangzhou, and as a sect with purple gold deposits, the Gui Yuan sect's manpower and resources were very strong. Once they started to prepare for war, the Gui Yuan sect spies were stationed in almost every small city and even some villas in Yangzhou. The Gui Yuan sect had prepared everything. In the land of the 9 prefectures, the sect that feared the Heavenly God Palace the most was undoubtedly Qing Hu Island. After the destruction of Hong Tian City, anyone with a little bit of intelligence would understand that if the Heavenly God Palace wanted to expand, there was only one direction, south, and attack Yangzhou. Yangzhou was Qing Hu Island's territory. Although the Gui Yuan sect was also in Yangzhou, the Gui Yuan sect was still in the hinterland of Yangzhou. Even if the Heavenly God Palace started a war, it would take a few months before the army of the Heavenly God Palace could reach Jiangning County, which was 2,000 li away from the northern border. On the edge of Sword Mountain of Qing Hu Island, since it was a special time, the center of power of Qing Hu Island became the edge of Sword Mountain. Even the island lord of Qing Hu Island, Taipan, lived on the edge of Sword Mountain to handle all kinds of information. The blind sword master was the first to know all kinds of information about the Heavenly God Palace. In terms of the number of spies and the scope of their infiltration, Qing Hu Island was much more powerful than the Gui Yuan sect. Therefore, the information they received was more detailed. Phew! Taipan looked at the information in his hands and heaved a sigh of relief. Taipan, is the Heavenly God Palace going to attack? The blind sword master, who was sitting cross-legged not far away, suddenly asked. Taipan, who was sitting in the pavilion and reading a large amount of information, turned his head and said with a smile, Martial Ancestor, we suspected that the Heavenly God Palace was going to attack. However, it seems like this is not the case. We suspect that the 2 armies are just reorganizing and reorganizing. At least, No armies have gathered at the border. The blind sword master also heaved a sigh of relief. If the heavenly god palace wanted to attack Yangzhou, they would at least gather their armies at the border. Since they didn't see any armies gathering, they naturally didn't need to worry. That's right. The Great Prairie Army of the Heavenly God Palace has slowly retreated back to the Great Prairie. It seems like the Heavenly God Palace has suffered a great loss after destroying Xiao Yao Palace and Hongtian City. They need to recuperate and manage Qingzhou and Yuzhou well. The blind swordmaster's hoarse voice rang out. However, Taipan, you must not be careless. If he doesn't attack now, it will be even more terrifying in the future. Therefore, you must investigate the movements of the Heavenly God Palace. Qinghu Island also needs to prepare. The existence of the Heavenly God Palace was like a huge mountain that pressed down on Qinghu Island. The two supreme sects of Yangzhou were very nervous. However, as the oldest sect in the land of the 9 prefectures, Emperor Yu's Hall was not nervous at all. The disciples of the Heavenly God Palace were still as carefree and relaxed as before. In their eyes, so what if the Heavenly God Palace was powerful? Would they dare to attack Emperor Yu's Hall? All the disciples of Emperor Yu's Hall were inexplicably confident. Outside Yu City, in the depths of the Blind Bear Mountain Range, roar numerous black bears, adult black bears that were as tall as 2 zhang, and adorable little black bears, walked or crawled around the dozen palaces, playing around. Among these black bears, handsome men and beautiful women would occasionally walk past. Here, beasts and humans got along very well. In the sacred palace, the tallest of the dozen palaces, Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia flew like a gust of wind toward the 7th floor of the sacred palace. They spun along the stairs and soon arrived at the 7th floor. Martial Uncle is too cautious. 2 days ago, the intelligence said that the Heavenly God Palace had removed Jing Yi's title as a foreign dignitary. Martial Uncle is still worried. Yu Tonghai was dissatisfied. However, when they arrived at the 7th floor, a smile immediately appeared on his face. He didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. The 7th floor was where Huang Tianqin, the person with the highest seniority in Emperor Yu's Hall, cultivated. Sit. The yellow-cloaked emptiness realm expert, Huang Tianqin, sat cross-legged. He looked like a teenager with white hair on his temples. Lu Xia and Yu Tonghai glanced at each other and sat down. Did you find out? Huang Tianqin asked. Yes. Yu Tonghai nodded and said, Martial Uncle, the intelligence 2 days ago wasn't detailed. Now it's all clear. Jing Yi might have been too stubborn, so he went against the sovereign of the Heavenly God Palace, Pei San, causing Pei San to be furious. He removed Jing Yi's title as a foreign dignitary, and even removed Jing Yi's wife, Li Jun, as a saintess. Oh, Huang Tianqin nodded slightly and asked, do you know why Jing Yi and Pei San went against each other? I don't know. Yu Tonghai shook his head and smiled. However, martial ancestor, Pei San is the sovereign of the Heavenly God Palace and an insightful emptiness realm expert. He must be arrogant. Last time, Jing Yi obtained 2 sets of godly armor. However, he kept the good ones for himself and gave the inferior ones to the Heavenly God Palace. This would definitely make Pei San unhappy. With Jing Yi's personality, it's not strange for both sides to fall apart. Martial Uncle, these 2 sets of godly armor should have belonged to Emperor Yu's Hall, Lu Xia said in a deep voice. Lu Xia said in a deep voice, if Jing Yi hadn't chased us, the 6-eared earth-drilling mouse would have brought Yu Shijin over, and the 6-eared earth-drilling mouse would have fallen into our hands. It's hateful that Jing Yi is an emptiness realm expert, but he's shameless. He insists that he didn't get the godly armor. Huang Tianqin sneered and said softly, he stole the treasure of Emperor Yu's Hall. We can't tolerate this. Yu Tonghai and Lu Xia also agreed. It's fine if we don't act. Huang Tianqin said coldly. If we act, we must kill Jing Yi in one fell swoop without giving him a chance to fight back. Jing Yi has a demonic beast that can fly and drill into the ground. Do you have a way to deal with it? Huang Tianqin looked at the two. Yu Tonghai narrowed his eyes and said confidently, Martial Uncle, I am 100% confident that I can kill Jing Yi and obtain the Hong Tian godly armor. Chapter 1 arrives. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.